Hey guys, welcome to Box Office Addict, my weekly live stream podcast where I break down the weekend numbers for you, and I have a free-form discussion with the chat. If this is your first Box Office Addict, welcome to the show. I hope you have a good time, and if this is the 49th time you've been here, well, you probably need crazy pills. And I say that in the nicest way possible. We all need crazy pills sometimes. Sometimes we need pills to make us crazy. Other times we need pills to deal with our craziness. And sometimes you need a pill to get a boner. Not that I would know anything about that, you know. I've never had to take those because I'm a manly man with giant balls. Huge, gigantic balls. Anyway, I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little rough today. I didn't really get a chance to, I don't know, clear my throat and, you know, do a lot of crap like that. So I might have a lot of tremble today just because of that. And all I've really had is coffee, so I haven't had a lot of water to clear my throat. Sort of slept in today. Don't know why. Didn't stay up that late last night, but was surprisingly tired despite doing absolutely nothing yesterday. So I'm not sure. I've been really sleepy lately. I think it might be the weather. It started raining. Because it's that weird thing during summer where it starts raining at random moments, and then it rains for like 2 weeks straight. Because God likes to cry on us during this time of the year. Which is fine. You know. I mean, Eric Clapton wrote Tears in Heaven, and where do the tears go? They would naturally fall on Earth. Obviously. Alright, so we got quite the weekend to talk about here. We got really a lot to talk about. This has been a busy fucking summer. Seriously, this summer, box office is a boomin', as they would say in Inglourious Bastards. Legitimately, there is several films now that are hits. I like your pick on Twitter, Pat. Which picture? Do you mean the one that is just the Please Rewind photo? Is that the one you're talking about? Or something else that you're referring to? If you're talking about something else, please let me know. I must know. It's been dry AF here. See, I abbreviated that. Now, that would not be an acronym, people. That would be an initialism. Because you can't go AF. So, don't confuse it. Don't say acronym. Don't be a moron, people. It's an initialism. There is a difference. Oh, and I'm going to drink more coffee. Would you smash me? I don't know what you look like. Or do you want to play Super Smash Brothers? If you do, I will kick your ass. I'm awesome at that game. In all versions of it, but in particular Melee. So watch out, mofo. And I know how to do it all. Wave dashing is like child's play to me. Why do so many modern comedies in Hollywood have bland and lazy cinematography? Well, you're probably coming off that because I did a whole Twitter rant about this yesterday. Judd Apatow's politics have pissed me off for a long time. And not just during the Trump era. I've never liked Judd Apatow's politics. Even though I was a fan of Judd Apatow's work. I like Freaks and Geeks. I like Undeclared. I liked his script to The Cable Guy. So I thought, I'm going to go after him on Twitter. But not for anything political, anything social, nothing like that. I'm going to go after something where it hurts. I'm going to go after his balls. I'm going to attack his films. Now, here's the weird thing about Judd Apatow. His films typically have pretty decent scripts. Not all of them. This is Ford. He's got a pretty bad script. But they usually have a decent enough script, good actors, good characters. That's not you with the long hair and wearing the Woodcross necklace. I don't think so. I don't have long hair. And I don't think I'd be wearing a necklace. That might be a picture from a movie that you just haven't seen. We'll go look through that and see. We'll see. But anyway, let's go to that Twitter rant I went on for the hell of it. Why not? Why not do it? So I decided to attack Judd Apatow's framing, composition. Not entirely cinematography. Cinematography factors in a lot more things too, like lighting and all that. Talking about his direction. His visual style. Or lack thereof, to be quite honest. Judd's background was in TV. Okay, he worked on the Ben Stiller show. He worked on the Larry Sanders show. He worked on Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared and all that. Judd Apatow was a TV guy, for the most part. He worked on some movies, like The Cable Guy or Heavyweights. So he really broke out huge with the 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Superbad era. And even today, Trainwreck was a big hit. He produced Bridesmaids. So Judd Apatow still has a very prominent career. He's worth like $100 million. But I wanted to point out, and to be fair, every frame of painting already basically made this video a long time ago, where he talked about Edgar Wright and visual comedy, and he used some examples from like Paul Feig movies and so on. And I know Adam from Your Movie Sucks has complained about this, but Judd Apatow is a pretty bad director. And directing isn't all visual. A lot of directing is what you can create with the cast, how you block a scene, what the tone is you can bring to it. So I'm not saying Judd's a terrible director all around, but he's a very generic, mediocre director with no visual style, no eye. Now you might say, what about Funny People? That film looked alright. Well, that was Steven Spielberg's longtime cinematographer, who had shot Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, and the film cost $75 million. So if you can't make a good-looking $75 million with one of the world's greatest living cinematographers, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think Judd had anything to do with that. In fact, I think he completely leaned on his DP in that movie, which a lazy director tends to do. So I went through some examples to show that Judd is very, very lazy in how he frames a shot. And what he puts in there. The frame doesn't say anything in a Judd Apatow movie. Now, once again, every frame of painting did a lot of this in his Edgar Wright video, so I'm not claiming that this is some original thought I had. I understand that this is something that other people have pointed out. Judd Apatow does a lot of shot reverse shot. He does a lot of really lazy wide shots. He does a lot of... I mean, really, it's just basic stuff. I'm assuming it has a lot to do with that he does a lot of takes. And there's a lot of improvisation, so he tries to keep it as simple as possible so he can get as much out of it and have more room to edit. But having said that, Martin Scorsese does that. David Fincher does that. And they still have terrific framing, so I can't really see that argument totally hold water simply for the fact that much better directors do the same thing. So the whole improv, doing a lot of takes thing, I don't think is a very good argument. Also, just because you're doing that doesn't mean that you have to compose these really lazy shots. Also, yes, as many people point out, Judd Apatow's horrible at editing his films and pacing his films. All of his films are a half hour too long. They all could use drastic cuts. 40-Year-Old Virgin's a film I like a lot, but it's still about 25-30 minutes too long. It's a really good movie. I really like that movie. I think Steve Carell's great in it, but it needs cut down. It just needs to be a tighter movie. At 100 minutes, it'd be a classic. But it's, I mean, the extended cut's even longer. And here Judd asked about this, and he's just like a douche about it. He can't accept the criticism. I have his book of interviews, and he's in there with Jeff Garlin. And it's being pointed out to him, and he's like, you know, people say that, but I don't really like that. I like movies like James Brooks made and all that stuff. It's like, well, dude, you're not James L. Brooks. Get your stick out of your ass. You're not James Brooks. You didn't make broadcast news. Okay? So, anyway. So I said Judd Apatow movies have horrible framing. Did he never learn how to shoot something that doesn't look like a generic television show? Here is my first example of boring. This is LeBron James and Bill Hader in Trainwreck. This is a very lazy shot that a film student could do. Or a YouTuber, to be quite honest. And you also notice something here that's really lacking is depth of field, which a lot of Judd Apatow films don't have. There's no depth to the picture. There's nothing going in the frame. I don't think he's probably great at the Circle of Confusion or in his lenses that he chooses. I'm sure that he doesn't seem... Honestly, even his lighting most of the time is very flat. Now, some directors did this. John Hughes' direction, cinematography for the most part, was very... even lighting. Not that cinematic looking for most of his films, with maybe a couple exceptions. But he still did a lot of creative things as a director, and I would argue his scripts are much better and his films were a lot better put together. If Judd films were tighter and better constructed and better written and stuff like that, most of them, because he's really only made a couple good movies, to be honest, then you could probably see that argument hold a little bit more water. But this is in general an issue that comedies today have very lazy cinematography. This is a shot from Knocked Up. This is... Now, if you see the actors are doing a lot here, how she looks there and how Seth looks. She looks like she's kind of happy thinking about it, and he looks really worried. So, the actors are putting the emotion across the scene. The actual frame is doing nothing. Nothing is being said here with these two. And then this shot from The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I think is his best movie. It's just four guys standing in front of a camera. Once again, no depth to it. Nothing that impressive with the lighting. It's very lazy. It's just, hey, all four of you stand in front of the camera and look at a thing. And then there's so much shot reverse shot in Judd Apatow movies. I mean, it's ridiculous, to be honest. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Hamster Snake. Thank you. Any thoughts on Hideo Kojima's upcoming Delivery Boy walking simulator, Death Stranding? I haven't seen much of it, so I don't really have an opinion on it. But maybe I'll look into that for next week. Now, I wanted to look at what Edgar Wright does as a filmmaker. Now, look at that 40-year-old virgin shot the guys are lined up. Now, here's Edgar Wright doing a very similar thing in at World's End, right? But look how the beer taps are connected with the guys. Look at the depth in the background here. Look how each guy's doing. Like, it's simple, right? This isn't a complicated shot, but there's a lot more here being conveyed visually. There's not just a joke that is being like, hey, they're drinking beer. We're really getting emphasis here. You could even say that there is a phallic imagery to this and masculinity and all that, but that's probably reading into it a little bit. But still, this is an interesting shot. It's open to interpretation a little bit. For a comedy film, this is nice. It's nice framing. This shot in Hot Fuzz, he's just standing in the center, and everything around him is gone. Now, this conveys his isolation. This is after the point that he is no longer in the police force, and he has to go to the small town to go be a cop. And this is a guy who's like a super cop, and he gets fired. He feels alone, right? Look at that. He's isolated. All he has is his plant. So, you understand this subconsciously, but that's also the joke. And it's the story. And here's a really interesting shot from Scott Pilgrim. There's stuff going on in the background. You could even see the store across the street. You could see the reflections of things. And this is what's going on. The character's talking. Scott's doing something to keep his head from hurting because he just got in a fight. But these characters pop in. If you've seen this scene, they pop in and are talking too. And then you have some connection here with the sodas. But they pop in like, hey, Scott. I believe this is after the fight with Todd. With Brandon Routh's character. But these characters have stuff going on. So look how far back that shot goes. There's a lot of depth to the shot. And there's things going on in the foreground and in the background. That's good framing. Plus, when he pops in, it's kind of a joke, too. It's erupt, and he comes in. There's a lot of stuff like that. That's good filmmaking. This shot is terrific, actually. Emphasizing that just how burnout and almost zombie-like people are. That they already are just kind of like they don't give a shit. This is terrific framing, honestly, all across the board. This one, great. The joke isn't just what they're doing in the conversation and having. There's a joke that they're distracted by the zombie in the background, and this is actually just a gorgeous shot on its own merits, without explaining why it works better for the joke and the story. That these two guys are focused in their own world, and they can't really pay attention to the zombie going on, and they're arguing about it. But this is just a beautiful shot. I mean, the lighting coming down, it's kind of like the Exorcist shot, the famous shot in the Exorcist. The darkness and everything like that. That's just an amazing shot. But this isn't a comedy movie, right? That's a great horror shot. Because Edgar Wright's like, I also have to film this like a competent horror movie. I can't just make a lazy comedy. And here's another shot with guys lined up, just like in 40-Year-Old Virgin. But Edgar Wright does something a little different with the camera. He has them stand in different positions. And thus, you get more across. Instead of the four guys looking directly at the camera, Paul Rudd and that, and Seth Rogen, you get each one of them doing a facial expression here that kind of emphasizes different personalities. From Martin Freeman to Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. And you kind of see it there, and you really get more of an intimacy with these guys. It's not like this is a brilliant shot in what it's saying with the subtext, but you really get a better feeling of what's going on in their heads, and that makes it more interesting. It's just not being lazy. It's doing different angles, different techniques. Steven Soderbergh talks about this in a lot of his commentaries, trying to do different things for your transitions and so you can set up interesting cuts and shots. Don't keep repeating the same shot over and over and over again like Judd Apatow does. You can do a different shot. It's not like the shots in this movie like 20 times. It's just you come up with something new. Because why not make every single shot interesting? Why do the same thing all the time? Look, this is no different pretty much from that shot from earlier with them sitting at the hospital. It's just two people sitting at a table, and he's cutting here, and he cuts back to the other side of the table. Nothing really interesting about that, and he doesn't change the angles much at all. It's the same angles over and over again. Same shot. You see Steve Carell's back here. Elizabeth Banks here. It just goes back and forth like that. Over the shoulder, shot, reverse shot stuff. There's a little bit of stuff going on in the background. That's a little bit interesting, but... You know, and this isn't a terrible shot, to be fair. You know, there's this here in the center, keeps things nice. But, you know, this is still very easy to do. Anyone can do this. There's nothing special about this, and this is a Hollywood movie. This is stuff you could do if you had a good camera and you wanted to make a YouTube video. From Trainwreck. They're just sitting at the table. And what's he going to do? Shot, reverse shot, close up, close up, close up, wide shot. It's like he only has 3 shots. Very boring, you know, very basic framing. And don't get me wrong, if this was your first movie and you were a young director, I wouldn't be, you know, complaining about this. This is Judd Apatow's like 6th, 7th Hollywood film, and he's been in the industry since the late 80s. The guy's been around a long time. He's in his like 50s now. He's not a young guy. He's had a lot of experience. He should be doing more interesting things. And this is still the stuff he was doing in his early works. You can give 40-Year-Old Virgin a pass a little bit because he hadn't made a movie before. But this film looks worse than 40-Year-Old Virgin. And this was a film that was very acclaimed, and I still don't know why. That film's horrible. Now let's go back and look at Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Which is a gorgeous film, by the way. Some of that stuff looks like Tarkovsky. Gorgeous film, Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam shot. Look at this. Look at the castle in the background. Look how beautiful that is. Look at the skies. Look how much depth this has, and the characters in it. And this doesn't even something that this makes the scene funny or anything like that. It's just competent filmmaking. This is good lighting. This is them putting a little bit of extra effort into it. And they had no money to make this movie, right? And that is gorgeous. Even you can hang that up on your wall, right? And it gives legitimacy to the authorian jokes, to the time they're trying to set, even though it's absurd, even though it's farcical. They're still putting effort into the filmmaking. You don't have to make a really lazy film just because you're making a silly comedy. Okay, you can still put effort into shots like this and be like, oh wow, that's really nice. Even if it's shallow, right? But there's just a lot here. The trees on each side, right? The guys, the way they're framed. Arthur in the middle. The castle in the background. The skies looking sinister. You know, this would look good in a serious film. If this was a serious dramatic film, this would be nice cinematography, but it's in a comedy. But that legitimizes it, right? And that's very important. Holy Grail, yeah, great production values, really. Hello, Bathory. Hello, my sidekick. The Lost Jurassic World. That's funny. There are lots of dialogue-oriented directors comedies have. Yeah, it's okay to focus on dialogue. That's absolutely fine, but that doesn't mean you have to be lazy with your shots. I agree, Game Night did have good cinematography. That's a fine example. You can focus on your dialogue and on your jokes and your humor. Yes, Alexander Payne has terrific framing. Woody Allen, yes, they all have great. That's the thing. Why are Woody Allen films so great compared to so many other comedies? Why is Election or Sideways so much funnier and poignant than most modern comedies? It's because Alexander Payne's a good filmmaker, and he does interesting stuff. Woody Allen's been doing elegant, beautiful stuff since his early work. I think Take the Money and Run looked good, but he was influenced by Bergman. And he said, how do you make something funny with Bergman-type framing? It's art house comedy, which I love. It's treating the filmmaking like almost like an art house film, but the content is comedic. And it makes the films last longer and hold up a lot better. And then they're obviously just better movies. Where if you're just shooting something like a sitcom, I mean, it doesn't mean the movie can't be funny, but you're losing something by doing so. Now, to make another example of the Judd Apatow production I think did some well, I brought up Greg Matilla's Superbad, which I think is the best film Judd Apatow ever produced or worked on. This is the Gold Slick scene. Now, I'm not going to show it here because I don't want to get a copyright claim, but basically, if you remember the scene, the bottle which Michael Cera wants because the girl asked him to bring it to the party goes flying in the air, right? And there's this beautiful shot of the bottle in focus. Now, this emphasizes what Michael Cera's character feels. He thinks that bottle's the most important thing in the world. And there's this great slow-mo shot of him jumping, reaching for it. It's very visual. And he goes out and it just misses his hands. And then the lighting gets very dark on the floor of the bus. And you see this bottle with the gold in it on this dark floor just smash in slow motion. And he lands beside, and then he's laying by the broken glass. This is his mindset now. I've lost this. I'm broken this. I can't get this girl. And it emphasizes not only what he's thinking mentally, but kind of the joke that he would take this bottle so seriously. It's a very cinematic moment. It's a good use of slow motion. They do close-ups on everyone else's face like, oh no. But basically what it's getting across is Michael Cera's character, I think his name was Ethan, thinks about this bottle. It's all he thinks about. So it's the focus of the shot in slow motion. It's how he's viewing it. And it's what's important to him because this is his goal, is to get the girl. Kind of like trying to get the gold from the dragon or trying to get the gold at the end of the journey or something like that. This is his gold he has to go take to his princess so he can win her, right? Now, later on, this doesn't matter, but still, this is what he's thinking at this particular time in the movie. And then being by the broken thing, it's like his dreams have been broken and destroyed. They're on that floor with him. Now, it's very simple, but it makes it better. Now, I brought up Wes Anderson. Now, he's always used central framing. That's Kurosawa and Kubrick used and stuff like that. But I never think it worked better than in Rushmore, even though he does in all of his movies, because Max Fisher is a raging narcissist. A lot of this has to do with him writing plays and being a teenager, and he sees himself as the center of the universe, or like being the center of attention, basically. Max Fisher likes to be the center of attention. He likes everything to be about him. Now, there's a lot of central framing throughout Rushmore for a lot of characters, but it really works with Max Fisher in this film, and I think that's why it makes this film funnier, and scenes like this funnier, the B scene when he's walking up, because he, right now, is making himself the center of attention. He sees himself as the center of the universe, and it's funnier because of it, and we get into how he sees himself. The director is emphasizing what the character thinks, and thus we're registering it. So the dialogue's emphasizing this. Jason Schwartzman's wonderful performance is getting this across, but also the framing is getting this across. That's just filmmaking 101. And it's not that complicated. This isn't that hard of a shot to do. Now, once again, Wes Anderson does this in all of his movies. But he does deal with narcissism a lot and characters with having self-interest. But it really works in this film. And this was the film he really started to do this a lot with. Not as much in Bottle Rocket. Even the Bottle Rocket, he does it a lot in this movie. And in scenes like this, it's beautiful. It's not just the song choice, The Who, and the comedy of the scene. It's the meanness is almost forgivable, that it's not completely cynical. Because he's manipulating you to kind of see things from Max's point of view. You know, I said the point is don't settle for something that doesn't enhance the story. You don't have to settle for less. Why do you think there's so little effort in the cinematography in many modern movies? I think it's because a lot of storyboarding is done before they actually shoot the movie. Yes, Edgar Wright uses editing. I mean, Every Frame of Painting did a great video on this, so I'm not really trying to... But, mainly I think it's because so many films are storyboarded and they're rushed and they're trying to hit a foreign market and certain demographics, and they think about the digital platforms now, like on your cell phone or going to go on streaming, that I don't think they care about a film looking that cinematic as much as they used to. I think it's more about releasing it based off what the premise is, the IP poster, and hitting certain beats. Me and David Stewart talked about this. Movies are trying to hit beats now. Like, you gotta have this scene, you gotta have this scene, you gotta have this part, you gotta have the joke here, you gotta have a dramatic moment here, instead of organically telling a story. And when you can't organically tell a story, you also can't do it in the filmmaking. Because you're trying, it's the movie made by committee thing. Now, this isn't true for all movies. There's still wonderful movies that come out of the Hollywood system. It's just not as common as it used to be. Because even generic, mediocre films used to have pretty good filmmaking. Back in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. A film that wasn't great still had some genuinely good filmmaking. Now, the issue is because I think it's just simply that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Screenplays are being rewritten over and over again. They're trying to cater to a foreign market, And it just takes a lot of visualization. I also think it's a lot of these LA directors aren't very good. I think a lot of them went to film school and are glorified second unit guys. They're not really directors. They just know how to frame the shot in a very boring way, and put a scene together, and they didn't really build a unique voice or try to do interesting things. There's a reason people really like Nolan or Paul Thomas Anderson or David Fincher or Danny Boyle, because those guys do interesting things. Even if you don't like their movies, they do interesting things with their cinematography. You know the director, not just the DP. You know when a movie's being done by David Fincher, not just because this guy shot it. Where Judd Apatow has to completely lean on a cinematographer, and he probably spends more time dealing with the actors. But you can do both at the same time. You don't have to lean on one or the other, especially with shooting on digital today. Now, let's go to my last example here. This is a shot from The Social Network, which I'd actually argue, for me personally, is one of the best day modern comedies. I think The Social Network is a hilarious movie. It's also a dramatic movie. It's got plenty of irony. It's sad, it's poignant, it's got a great parallel to the times we're living in, that the guy who created a thing to connect us is sitting by himself refreshing a page. There's a lot of pathos and all that, but I still think it's a very funny movie. And I find the character of Mark Zuckerberg in the movie to be hilarious, played by Jesse Eisenberg. He's a good version of the Sheldon Cooper character from Big Bang Theory. Now, when I said it's not that complicated, right? This is a famous scene from the movie. This is a very famous scene, the rain scene, right? Where Mark Zuckerberg is asked, "Am I getting your full attention?" And he looks out the window and sees the rain and says, "It's raining." And the guy's like, "What?" And he goes, "It just started raining." And then you get the shot of the window with the rain, and the music comes in, the Reznor score, the dun, right? Now, he isn't paying attention to this guy. He tells the guy, "You don't have my full attention." So, what is David Fincher doing here? The guy in the background that he's not paying attention to is out of focus. Because Mark Zuckerberg isn't focused on that guy. He's focused on the window where it's raining, and that shot is in focus. But this guy isn't in focus in this moment. So he's telling us, with the camera, what's going on in Mark's mind, while it's also being said in Aaron Sorkin's screenplay. The screenplay reinforces the visual reinforces the screenplay. Easy, right? It's not that complicated. That's the idea here. It's like, that's not brilliant. That's not something you have to be a genius to come up with. That's why I used it as an example. That's not that complicated of a shot. The framing isn't brilliant. It isn't something that anyone couldn't do with the same equipment who is a competent enough filmmaker. But David Fincher is so good because he's not pretentious. Because he doesn't try to do too much. He does what's necessary. He cuts the fat. He is efficient. He doesn't rely on close-ups unless they're necessary. And everything he does is to serve the screenplay he's doing. That's why he's a brilliant director. He could take any script and direct the shit out of it. And this moment isn't just great because the dialogue in the scene's great. Eisenberg, this is probably a standout moment. This is the Oscar clip moment. It's because we're getting told information. And just the cutting to the HD cameras and all that are being filmed, it makes it even better. There's a lot of brilliant things going on in the scene, but I use this shot right here just to emphasize very simple things. Thinking about it as a director. And to me, it makes the scene kind of funny. That this guy's so self-obsessed that he can't pay attention to anything else around him. I find that funny. I find that clever. Which I don't think Judd Apatow films are. I don't think they're clever. And that's all I'm getting at here, people. That's all I'm getting at. So LA is basically the breeding ground for being pretentious actors. I don't want to say pretentious. I just want to say lazy. You don't build an organic, unique voice because you didn't develop it on your own. You were taught this like almost factory-made way. You were structured too much, and you didn't teach yourself a lot of things or find things that are interesting to you and aesthetic. No, you can't do everything. You can't do everything. You can't. Not everyone can make a great $200 million film. Not everyone can make sci-fi. Not everyone can do an art film. Not everyone can do a comedy. Not everyone can do a horror film. There's different genres. You have to find your own voice and develop it and find out the things that you're good at, the sensibilities you have. This is why I hate when people criticize Bergman or Woody Allen or Wes Anderson or any of these directors for doing the same thing all the time. That's because they're smart. And they're trying to get better at that thing that they're good at. That's why they keep doing a lot of the same shots. That's why they keep dealing with a lot of the same themes. You know, Martin Scorsese films, a big chunk of them deal with guilt, and that's to deal with Catholicism and the silence of God, and how fucked up the world is, you know? But that's his worldview. That's how he sees the world. So he's trying to emphasize that with his films and what he's telling his stories about, because that's what you have to learn. You have to learn what story you have to tell as a filmmaker. And a lot of these directors don't have that. J.J. Abrams' films don't say anything. He doesn't have a voice. He's just trying to mimic something to create a sense of awe instead of having stories he wants to tell. He doesn't have stories he wants to tell. He has ideas. You know, a lot of these filmmakers don't have anything to really say. And that's because they're not interesting. They just studied film. They only know film. They don't know history. They don't read the literature like a lot of the older filmmakers do. And they don't commit to something like, this is my style. This is where auteur theory came from, right? It was that you develop a style, and then your films are unique to that style. Stanley Kubrick films have extremely similar cinematography from the film, but the genres he's doing are different. Dr. Strangelove is not The Shining or Barry Lyndon or Eyes Wide Shut. But you can tell it's a Stanley Kubrick film, right? But nobody gives him shit for that he did the same things all the time as a filmmaker, because he's telling different stories in different genres. But a lot of it is about the same thing, too. There's a lot of similarities, but things are different. You can challenge yourself with the stories you're going to tell while being very competent with your filmmaking sensibilities, because you develop them. And his background as a still photographer defined a lot of his filmmaking choices. There's nothing wrong with that. You should do that as a director. I encourage it. Find your voice and grow it. You know, not everything's going to be radically different, and I don't think that's a valid criticism. I think a lot of directors that are great did that. I think some of the greatest directors of all time. Whereas, you know, a lot of hackish, mediocre directors, they use exciting editing or moving cameras and stuff like that, and it really doesn't come across that well because it feels gimmicky. It doesn't feel like they earn that. Or that they're doing it for any actual purpose. Hold on, let me read some stuff. I saw Ran in 8th grade, mind-blowing. Yeah, Ran's one of my favorite movies. Or Ron, however you want to say it. It's amazing how the most subtle things can say so much. Yes, you don't have to overthink cinematography. Gordon Willis talked about this, the guy who shot The Godfather and Annie Hall, Manhattan, a lot of great films. He talked about this, that there's a beauty to elegance, simplicity, that people don't understand that. A lot of people think complexity equals more. And films there honestly have a lot of complexity now. There's a lot of CGI. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's more intricate sound editing, sound mixing. But less is always more for a good reason. That's what poetry is. It's choosing specific words to emphasize emotions and how they flow, right? That's what poetry is. As a filmmaker, you have to be somewhat poetic. But when you're just using editing, it's basically the difference between what Logan Paul does in a Vine, where there's a cut every 5 seconds. Hey, what's going on, guys? Oh my god, crazy Tuesday. Hey, let's go out, hang out. Oh, hey, there's my little friend here, right? That's just chaotic. Just to feed you a lot of information and sensory overload, so you can't really think about it. Where if somebody, you know, how many people on YouTube really do something interesting that lasts a long time? How many YouTubers do like a 5-minute thing where it isn't them just talking to a camera? But there's an elegance that you have to learn. There's a balance you have to learn in not trying to give the audience too much information to make up for the fact that you're shallow. There's the idea that you have to give as little information as possible to emphasize the things that matter, the soul, if you will. So it just isn't artificial. There has to be more to it. And this stuff isn't hard to do. People act like it's extremely difficult to do this kind of stuff. It's not. Yeah, I don't find Nolan to be a brilliant artist, but he ends up brilliant compared to his peers. Well, also, Nolan does interesting things. You know, a lot of the stuff he does in Dunkirk's very interesting from a filmmaking standpoint. Some of the choices he makes as a filmmaker are really interesting. And, you know, there is stuff to look at with his movies. He's more of a craftsman than he is an artist, probably. But, you know, it's nothing wrong with respecting craftsmanship and looking at it to study film. The scene in Dark Knight, it stands out to me. It's a famous scene, right? Everyone knows it. The hit me scene with the Joker and Batman, where Batman's driving the motorcycle to hit the Joker and Heath Ledger's there. Now, It's so good. It's so good. If you go back and rewatch that scene, because Dark Knight's become this conflated thing where people hate it now or like it, and there's so much discussion, and it was overrated, and it's one of those films that's underrated and overrated at the same time, because it's overrated because a lot of things people praise it for, it doesn't deserve praise for, yet it's underrated because people ignore some brilliant pieces of nuance within the filmmaking that Nolan does. Like, brilliant choices, I mean that, great choices. In little moments. How the film's made down to it, just the finest detail. So you see the Batpod driving towards the Joker in this beautiful shot. Chicago's maybe never looked better in a movie ever. It's a gorgeous night photography by Wally Pfister. You see the Batpod coming at him, the Joker shooting the Tommy gun, the cars are going out and all that. And you see the Batpod from a distance. That's a real guy riding a motorcycle towards the actor. That's not a fake shot, right? That's not a CGI background. That's real. It looks amazing. There's so much depth of field to that. And you see the cape flying. It's so awesome. And the night, the way the lighting is, it's gorgeous. But there's this close-up. It's a lower shot, and the angle's very low. There's this close-up on Heath Ledger's face for a few seconds. It's only about 2 seconds. Because he's doing that thing, come on, I want you to do it. Come on, I want you to do it. Hit me, I want you to do it. I want you to do it. But there's this moment where it gets right on his face, and he goes, hit me! He says, hit me, and he looks like a fucking bulldog. The way he delivers the line, the way he looks, his facial expression, the way the angle's put on his face, hit me, is amazing. And it's only about 1 second, but it's so powerful because he kept the best part of Heath Ledger's performance in that scene. It builds up the tension, the music starting that, you know, and you see the Batpod coming, and you see Christian Bale, and you see the shot from the distance, and it's the two ideas clashing with each other, the Joker's philosophy and Batman's philosophy, and they're coming to a head with each other. It's being conveyed to us visually. Nolan would do terrific on a $10 million budget. If you've ever seen his film Following, which is a $10,000 film, it looks amazing. It's a very, very well-made movie, his first film, and he shot himself, by the way. Nolan would be very good. And also, he made Memento for $5 million, and I would argue Memento's his best movie. So, pretty well. Nolan does pretty well on a low budget. So you see, their two philosophies are about to clash. This is being emphasized visually. It's not just in almost the preachiness of the movie, but we're being shown that the Batman and the Joker are clashing, right? And then just that close-up, hit me! You know, is amazing. That cut and that moment is so amazing. It's powerful, you know, because he's a good enough filmmaker, and he keeps that angle low. You know, there's interesting choices there, but to do that practically instead of doing it with a bunch of CGI, to actually shoot that in a real city, to give it the grit of a crime film, and then to, you know, to really lean on the actor to let Heath Ledger kind of make that scene what it happens, make it what it is. And that's just good stuff. And that's hard to do. You have to put a little bit of extra work into that to get a scene like that. I'm sure that wasn't easy to shoot, just to get the sound right and to get the effects done right, and, you know, that you're doing it with real actors. But it's great, and it's held up now. It's been 10 years. That scene holds up more than a CGI action scene from any film over the last decade, for the most part, because it's real. That's all it is. You think Red Letter Media could actually write a good film? No. I think that the problem with Mike J and them is that they're so invested in schlock and hackery, and they've made that the gimmick of their whole thing. Very talented guys. Like, you could argue the Plinkett reviews are good documentaries, but they know too much about how to make a bad movie that they've kind of lost their way. If they would have made a good film, they would have done it when they were younger. The problem with Mike J and this isn't really a problem, it's just an observation I have. They're too hacky by nature. That's almost the joke of them, that we're hacks. So we're gonna attack Hollywood because they're very knowledgeable. They know film. When you watch the review show or any of this stuff, they have great information. In Dark Knight, it's in Dark Knight when the Joker and the Batman when Batman's driving the Batpod towards the Joker, and there's the line, "Hit me!" It's an amazing moment. It really is. People should go back. There's a moment where the interrogation scene where Batman's beating up the Joker. And there's a moment where, you know, and Christian Bale's actually punching Heath Ledger in that scene, by the way. There's a moment where he punches him in the face, and Heath Ledger falls to the ground. And he gets back up, and before he gets hit again, it's only about 2 seconds he has to do this. He smiles. He looks at Christian Bale's Batman and smiles. A big smile, and then gets hit in the face again and knocked down. That's a wonderful little nuance. It's only about a second. You really have to catch it. I didn't catch it the first time I saw the movie. He smiles before he gets punched in the face again. It's amazing. There's things like that you can do, and that's simple. That's just an actor smiling, getting punched, and the shot's just like an angle from high looking down on his face. That's not a complicated thing. But it's so impactful, right? Because you feel it. It's good stuff. I think Mike knows how to make a movie. I think he understands narrative and themes and all that, but I just don't think he has the capabilities to make a good movie anymore. I really don't. As unfortunate as it is to say that, because I really like Red Letter Media. But I just don't think they can do it. I mean, I think Space Cop confirmed it. When you try to make a bad movie on purpose, it doesn't work. I've never seen a movie where somebody tried to make a bad movie on purpose work. Those schlocky films, those B movies, where a lot of the time people... Yes, Christian Bale actually punched Heath Ledger in that scene. The problem is those guys... Yeah, whenever I've seen a movie where somebody's trying to make a B film, or a schlocky film, or like one of those so bad it's good movies, you can't do that without it being organic. The Room, Tommy Wiseau thought he was making a good movie. The guy who made Troll 2 thought he was making a good movie. It doesn't work when you go in and you're trying to make it bad on purpose and you're homaging these things. It just comes off fake. That's the biggest problem with Space Cop. It just feels like a gimmick and not really like something that happened organically. And the problem with Red Letter Media I have is just that, even though, and I love their videos, man. I think, I freaking love Half in the Bag and some of the Times Issue stuff. It's brilliant, but they're just... They go for the bad. They'll mispronounce words on purpose. They'll say stupid stuff on purpose. They'll do close-ups that are bad on purpose. They do stuff intentionally. But I think they've done it for so long now, since their 20s, and they're influenced so much by great films. Like, Jay really knows the stuff about films, but they also love schlock and B movies so much. I think they have this mixed bag of things in their brain that they can't tell the difference between telling a good story and just making something that makes them laugh, like an inside joke. And that's kind of the issue. No, wrong. For YouTube standards, their editing, their writing is brilliant. The Nerd Crew's great. Half in the Bag has tons of great sketches. I'm not saying that their stuff's not great. It's great. But do I think they could tell a good story over 90 minutes or a 2-hour movie? No, I don't know if they could. Also, that's hard to do. It's hard to write a good story. I don't care how talented you are. It's very tough. Krull is the premier example of people trying to make a good movie, but it ends up so bad. Yeah, and I just wish Red Letter Media instead would try to... I think Jay should be the creative voice. Honestly, I think Jay should be the one who gets to work on the scripts and handle a lot of it and do the editing, and I think Jay's just the more knowledgeable one in general. I think Mike's kind of an egotist, and I don't mean that as in I love Mike, but I think he doesn't like people disagreeing with him. I think he's kind of a guy who thinks he knows everything. When they had that guy who made The People versus George Lucas, and they were talking about American Graffiti, and Mike had this theory that George Lucas was always a fraud. And he was trying to say that American Graffiti was a bad movie because it's just really boring and bad acting and meandering, and he hated THX, and he didn't want to give him any credit for Star Wars. And, the guy just told him, he goes, well, I disagree with you. That's not true. He goes, American Graffiti was, and he was trying to say that only Indiana Jones and Star Wars had, the pop culture zeitgeist and affected the culture. And then the guy brought up, well, what about American Graffiti? And Mike was trying to argue that it didn't, even though American Graffiti made $100 million in the 70s as one was a huge film. It's one of the most successful films ever. And I think that's something where Mike just wants to keep this narrative going that George Lucas is a hack fraud and was never good. Where, and you could argue maybe Gary Kurtz and Francis Ford Coppola had a big influence on American Graffiti, but Mike doesn't make that argument. He just says it's a bad movie and it wasn't good. And American Graffiti is one of my favorite films, and this guy says, well, I just don't agree with you on that. And you don't see that too often on Red Letter Media type stuff. Mike gets in his head some idea, and then Jay and Rich don't really argue with him about it too often, and the guests don't argue with it about it too often. But I think Mike might have a little bit of bitterness, even if he doesn't want to admit it, or he might be a little bit cynical. And I love Mike. I think Mike's funny as shit. Mike is a super funny guy. He's got great delivery. He's basically a stand-up comic as far as I'm concerned. But I do wonder somewhat about his mental state with that stuff sometimes. I do wonder if there is some narcissism there. You know, maybe the guy who was wanting so hard to be an artist and then kind of didn't really work out, and he had to become a YouTuber and a reviewer and all that stuff. And I do wonder if there is something underneath there that makes him a little bit bitter. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not saying I can read the guy's mind or anything, but I've come over the years to really like Jay. I think Jay's really I think Jay's the one who's kind of been breaking out the last couple of years as the real star. Mike's the funniest one, no question. Rich is great, but Jay I think is the best reviewer, and I think he just understands cinema a little bit better than the other two, even though Mike makes these brilliant observations. Yeah, I think they may have watched too many bad movies. That's a very good point. I don't know. They might have seen way too many bad films. And I do wonder about that. That can mess your brain up. I've certainly seen a lot of bad films too, but, you know, I do wonder what's the balance. Oh, yeah, Jay has terrific taste. Yeah, like Jay liking David Lynch. And he's, you know, Frank Henenlotter movies. And he's, you know, or something like The Reflecting Skin. And then Mike's like, damn it, you always bring up these movies that no one's seen. It's like, dude, I've seen The Reflecting Skin. This is basic film buff stuff. And I know it's like, hey, I know Truffaut and all that, but it's like, you know, there is Mike's a funnier guy, he's a better entertainer, and he's kind of got his own creative genius, but I think Jay's better at the analytical stuff. I mean, one of the funniest jokes I've heard recently is when Mike said that joke in the Last Jedi review that it's like George Harrison, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney all got shot. Mark David Chapman had a machine gun. That's hilarious. Yes, I listened to Double Toasted. I was a fan going back. I plan to do a video series covering the entire Spill.com legacy. Of Corey, of Cyrus, of Leon, co-host, Cargill, where their careers went, how oneofus.net is a complete failure and how Double Toasted is a success, the politics, how those guys focused too much on websites and they didn't realize where the internet was going, what happened with Hollywood.com, their show, The Real Deal, going back on public access in Austin. I used to live in Texas, so I was familiar with them. I'm a big fan of the Spill guys, and I'm a big fan of Adam Sandler films. Modern day ones are much lazier. I'm a big fan of them. I think Corey and Leon are hilarious. I think they're funny. I don't agree with their politics at all. And this what sucks is the Spill guys used to be very anti-PC. They used to be completely politically incorrect, and now they make so many videos that are just SJW. But their reviews are great. I don't think Corey's a great reviewer. I think he talks too much. It kind of dominates the Double Toasted reviews too much. I think Leon is much better at reviewing and funnier. But Corey and Leon, when they get going on a joke, that stuff's hilarious. They're hilarious. I love both of their comedies, but they're not very good at reviewing. I'd say Corey. Corey's too dominant in the reviews, and I think Leon's just more articulate, eloquent, intelligent, quite frankly. Leon will say something that'll just kill me. I mean, like when he was talking about how much he liked Elastigirl, that was hilarious. I love Leon. That's all I'm talking about. I do like Corey. I think Corey's a good host. I think he's funny. But I do wish he kind of took a back seat a little bit more to the other people. And that kind of bothers me. But that's just an opinion. I think Chris, who's Cyrus, Chris now I think he's a great reviewer. I just think his politics have gotten in the way of his website. And trying to make a website and not start with a YouTube channel was a horrible fucking idea. Try to start a website today is just a horrible idea. I miss co-host 3000. Tony, really funny guy. I like heavyweights. Darkwing, how dare you? Do you think they will continue without Rich? Yes, I think Mike and Jay will probably do that show until they're dead. And I think that'll make it funnier. I think if they're doing that show when they're like in their 60s, that would just make it better. Honestly, I hope they do it until they're dead. That's what I want. I'm a huge Red Letter Media fan. So let me make that clear. There's no movie channel, review channel that I like nearly as much as them. No one's made me laugh as much as them. They're kind of on a whole other level. Everything they do, they have so many classics. I mean, they have at least 100 videos that are classics that I go back and rewatch all the time, and they still make no other channel on YouTube has that many classic videos that I could think of. They have too many. Every other video they make's like a new classic. I don't know how they fucking do it. They're so talented. I think that Corey has a rule of other people not talking while he talks. Also, don't you mean Martin? Well, his name was Leon on the Spill days, so that's how I know him. But his name is Martin. But yes, he was called Leon for legal reasons. He was Martin on the real deal, and then when they did Spill and they were animated characters, they couldn't use their names. So they became Leon, Cyrus. Corey kept his name. But for the Spill years, it was Leon, so that's how I knew him, and that's how I used to talk to him when I used to talk to him on the Spill days. I actually sent him a comic book one time out of his wish list, Leon. But I know his name's Martin. But I called him Leon for like 6 years of my life, so it's kind of hard for me not to automatically go to that name. Do you watch behind the trailer? Not really. I guess we should probably get to the box office. I think I've talked way too long about a bunch of stuff that doesn't relate to it. But why not? Okay, Overboard. $565,000. $83 million worldwide. This film ended up doing pretty well. Honestly, it did better than the original Overboard. That was actually a bomb, surprisingly. It just became a cable classic. Great movie. I love Overboard. Let's see. Gotti. $812,000, 52% drop, $3.2 million. This John Travolta film is not doing that well. Book Club ended up doing pretty well, $64 million. Should make $65 million. Not a bomb by any means. Won't You Be My Neighbor? The Mr. Rogers documentary had an 87% bump this week. That's huge in 348 theaters. $4.1 million. This film is doing very well for a documentary. Documentaries typically don't do this well. Avengers Infinity War is still holding on at the box office. 54% drop. $669 million. Should be able to make $675 to $680 at the end of its run. $2.03 billion. So this film not only passed the $2 billion mark, it passed it and then some. Huge international numbers. $1.361 billion. I've said enough about this movie, but needless to say, it's held on. It's still a huge success, and this sets up Infinity War Part 2 to be a huge, huge movie. Superfly, big drop this week, 51%, $3.3 million, $15 million, $16 million budget, not including marketing. This film did not do very well. Kind of a bad idea, I guess. Hereditary, 44% drop, $3.8 million, $35 million domestic, $48 million worldwide. This film might be able to make a decent profit. I don't think the budget's probably that high. Solo, A Star Wars Story, is still a bomb with a 59% drop. It passed the $200 million mark this weekend. $4 million this weekend. $202 million domestic, $353 million worldwide. That's with a $250 million production cost and over $100 million in marketing. So this film lost quite a bit of money. Not much to say about it that hasn't been said in countless Geeks and Gamers videos or anything like that. But yeah, it's a bomb. These numbers would be good for a lot of other movies, just not this. So yeah, we don't know how this is going to shake up Disney. They've talked about holding off on the spin-off movies as a result of this. We don't know how this is going to affect Kathleen Kennedy. So who knows? I thought the film would perform badly, but I never thought it would do this badly. I mean, I thought, like, at worst it would make $500 million. I thought that was, like, the low end. I never would have thought that there'd be a Star Wars film that wouldn't be able to make $400 million. That's crazy. So that just shows you how bad of an idea that movie was. Deadpool 2 passed $300 million this weekend, finally crossing that benchmark. $5.2 million this weekend, 39% drop. $110 million budget, $707 million worldwide. The first Deadpool made $783 million. $363 million domestic. Now, as I've said many weekends, this film isn't doing as well as the first Deadpool, but still the budget's only $110 million. And $700 million worldwide's huge. It made $300 million domestic. Not many sequels have done that. You know, so this is a huge, huge film. So that means Deadpool 3 could definitely make $300 million domestic. And again, $700 million. As long as they keep these budgets low, as long as they don't make a $200 million Deadpool movie, which I don't see ever happening, they could make 4 or 5 Deadpool movies. This one, I think a lot of it had to do with less interest in the marketing, Cable as a character, people probably liking it being less fresh. That doesn't mean that Deadpool 3, like Iron Man 3, can't come back and make even more money than the other two. So this franchise still has a lot of life in it, quite frankly. And this is good box office. I mean, only in comparison to the first one could you say it's a slight disappointment. That's it. On its own merits, I mean, if the first Deadpool had made this, we'd be like, oh my god, amazing. So these are great numbers. I mean, this is, you know, this is way more consistent than any other films in the X-Men franchise. To have 2 films in a row do this well. So, you know, and then let's look at Ryan Reynolds. He's also got the Hitman's Bodyguard sequel coming out, but if you look at, you know, his worldwide box office, he's at 4.5 billion. Both Deadpool films are at the very top of the list. So, you know, this is good. You know, if your films could consistently, I mean, I would have assumed this film would have made $500 million internationally. That would have been my guess a few months ago. So I would have thought at this point it would have like 800 million worldwide. But even at the foreign box office, this wasn't as big as the first Deadpool. Although it's closer to that than it is the domestic total. Really, the domestic total is the one that's a lot smaller. But that's fine. You know, it's a well-reviewed film, and it made a lot of money. So Fox can't complain. Or whoever ends up buying Fox, Disney or Comcast, I guess. Tag, 8.2 million, 45% drop. Film has a $28 million budget, $30 million domestic. Not a bad, you know, hole, but yeah, with that budget and everything, this film's not making too much money. This is really going to need big international box office to turn into something. Okay, Ocean's 8 crossed $100 million this week and had a really good hold. 38% is a great hold, I gotta say. This movie looks like crap. I have no interest in seeing it, but that's the best hold so far. That's much better than last week, and I'm shocked how well it did. So this film could make 130 million, which is where I thought it would end up. But that's a great hold. 30. If it can keep up holds this nice. So $100 million domestically and 170 million worldwide on a $70 million budget. This is from Gary Ross, the director of Pleasantville, The Hunger Games, Seabiscuit. It has the Sandra Bullock, who's a major movie star, Anne Hathaway, Cate Blanchett, Helena Bonham Carter. A lot of big names here. So $41 million opening weekend. The second weekend, I remember, was kind of a big drop, 54%. But now with this weekend, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, well, this film could be a hit. Even if it makes under 20 million, this should be able to make a profit. I think that this film could make 250 million worldwide. I think that's what it needs to make to really be considered a hit. For me, it's 250 million worldwide. Because you have to include marketing and all that and expectations. Because they probably want to make a sequel to this. You probably want to make, you know, Ocean's 9 and then 10 before, you know, we'd have 11, 12, 13. So I could see this, you know, if this could make 300 million worldwide, that's we don't know yet, but 250 I think would be the sweet spot. But we're going to talk about how well this summer is doing, and these films all factor into it. Deadpool, Ocean's 8, and the top 2 films. This is a very busy summer. It is 9% ahead of the current film movie last year where things were at. We already have 3 films that look to be making more than $500 million domestic. Everything is overperforming for the most part except Solo. And like maybe Deadpool. But even the #1 movie this weekend overperformed. It went way above the tracking and all expectations. It performed way better than anyone thought it was going to do. And that's very crucial to talk about here. Just like Infinity War performed above expectations, and earlier in the year, Black Panther. But look at this marketplace right now. You have, you know, Solo crossing 200 million. That's a bomb just because of the budget. But then Deadpool, 300 million. Ocean's 8, 100 million. And now you have The Incredibles at 350 million. It's a lot of money being made right now. And Infinity War down here, 670 million. There's a lot of money being made right now. This is a busy summer. AMC is doing very well. Movies are doing well. This is a busy movie summer. Not every summer does this well. We've had some summers that have been lesser than others. This is actually a very successful film. Well, Infinity War grossed Force Awakens. It's debatable. I don't know. It would have to make $38 million more. And I don't know if it can. Pat, Mindy Kaling said you're not allowed to review Ocean's 8 because you're a white male. Well, okay. Well, I'm not going to review it anyway, so she can have that one. She can please have that one. I'm not watching it. Maybe Deadpool 2's foreign total could be explained because the World Cup is going on. I think it's that, but then why is the domestic total lower too? It's not just and people here aren't watching the World Cup. So, Ocean's time of the month. That's a good one. So, I'm not really sure. ABC News, owned by Disney, claimed that the reports that the Star Wars spin-offs were put on hold was inaccurate. Any thoughts? Well, if it was inaccurate, it was inaccurate. I mean, I heard it was a rumor, so, you know, I didn't make a video on it for that reason, because I couldn't really see that it was confirmed by anything official. Hereditary had a budget of $10 million. Then that film should be able to make a little bit of a profit then. I believe that's A24. They've had a lot of films been doing well, like Lady Bird and all that. I think they're tired of Star Wars. I'm tired of Star Wars. I talked about this last night that I don't love Star Wars anymore. How I've completely fallen out of love with it. I don't really enjoy Star Wars anymore. Yeah, no, Red Letter Media was a big reason I got into YouTube content too. Do Zack Snyder films have good cinematography, or is everything too cluttered? It depends on the film. If Larry Fong's shooting it, the guy who shot Batman v Superman at 300 and all that, they can look pretty good. Dawn of the Dead has good cinematography. I think that Man of Steel has terrible cinematography. I think that film looks awful. And some of his other films don't look... But yeah, some of his films look good. I think Batman v Superman, the first 2 acts, is actually a very good-looking movie. The 3rd act looks terrible. Justice League doesn't look good, but that's just because that was a terrible production. 300's a pretty movie. It's a pretty movie. Watchmen's gorgeous. Larry Fong's work on that movie's terrific. That's a gorgeous movie. There's scenes in Watchmen that I think are A-level stuff when it comes to lighting, sets, costumes. I mean, Watchmen... You say what you will about the script and some of the acting and all the pacing and all that, but man, some of the actual filmmaking or production values of Watchmen are really good. Like, shockingly good. It's a really good-looking movie at points. So, I'd say Zack Snyder. I mean, that's nothing anyone's ever really criticized him for. He can do visuals. He just sucks at everything else. He's, like, not good at anything except, like, making, like, cool music video-looking stuff. He's like retarded David Fincher. Is what I would say. Watchmen's a good-looking movie. I have a lot of issues with that film, but it's a good-looking movie. I can't deny that. No question. Oh, the stream glitch for you guys? Oh, God. I think Man of Steel's really bad, and I especially think the visuals are bad. I think the cinematography... But I had such a glitchy stream when I did Jurassic World. That was just awful. It was really, really bad. That was driving me crazy. I went back to listen to it, and how many times it cuts out. I'm like, God damn it. I don't know what the fuck is the deal with OBS lately. Maybe it's the weather here. It keeps raining all the time. I was so... Because usually my streams are very healthy, and they don't have that. And then for some reason, when I did the Jurassic World review on Thursday, I mean, every 10 minutes for the first... The second hour, there was no glitching. But the first hour... I went back and listened to that thing. I'm sorry, guys. I heard how many times I might go cut some of that stuff. There's parts where it just jumps ahead like a minute, and it's terrible. And it really killed the pacing of that review. Somebody was in the comments complaining that I don't need to live stream movie reviews anymore because I go on tangents too much. And I wanted to say to the guy, it's like, dude, I didn't really go on tangents because I wanted to. It's because it kept cutting out and I couldn't stay on the review. Every time I'd get going on the review, the stream would screw up, so I'd have to try and talk about something else so I didn't lose the core of the stuff. You know, that review really should only been like an hour and 20 minutes, but because of the glitching was throughout the whole thing. That made it an issue. And I disagree that I shouldn't do the movie live streams. I actually think the tangents are funny, but I like reviewing the movies in live stream. Doesn't mean I won't still do short reviews. I did a review for Barry and Isle of Dogs and Batman Ninja and plenty of films that are short reviews, but do I like doing a movie live stream reviews? It's like, yeah, it's like, don't live stream this content. You can go on tangents on the box office. Don't go on the tangents on the movie reviews. And I disagree with that. That's just my opinion, though. Like, if you prefer the shorter 15-minute reviews, or the 8-minute reviews that I do, or the 20 minutes reviews over the hour and a half format, that's fine. If you prefer that, I understand that. I probably prefer the shorter too, but I like live streaming. I like doing the solo live streams. I like talking to you guys, and I like going through the whole movie's plot and talking about every beat of the movie without being like, hey, let's just talk about this, and this. Yeah, that's the thing. What am I going to do in a Jurassic World video? Jurassic World 2? Just make jokes about it and say what everyone else... It would just be your movie sucks review. That's really what it would be. I mean, that's all it would. That was all it would be. You know, and that's kind of my issue. At least when I get to do the live stream reviews, a little bit of my personality gets to come across some more. There's no analysis I can go into on these films. Like, if you notice that I did it with Infinity War, because there really isn't much analysis. I can't talk about subtext. I did it with The Incredibles 2 and all that. You know, some of these films I just don't really want to make a video out of. I don't want to put effort into writing stuff out for it and editing on it, because I don't think the film's worthy of it. I'll do that for a film like Dunkirk, Call Me By Your Name. If I did a Good Time review, I would do that. If I, you know, those kinds of movies, 3 Billboards. But a lot of these films, it's just like, dude, come on. I mean, really. I mean, basically, there would be no material. It would just be another generic movie review. And that's why I didn't like my Wrinkle in Time or Ready Player One reviews as much as some of my other stuff, because I didn't have much to say. And they probably would have been better as live streams. I think I could have got a lot more material out of Wrinkle in Time and Ready Player One if I had live streamed those reviews. Yeah, I remember when she was hot, back in, like, Fight Club. She was really good looking back in the 80s, too, A Room with a View. But yeah, she was Marla Singer in Fight Club, very good looking. I mean, she's just older now. But she has a nice face, for sure. Always had an interesting face structure on Helen Bonham Carter. It was something around the Beatrix era in Harry Potter. She started to kind of like, huh. Oh, thank you for the $5, Darkwing. I would love a hardcore R-rated Jurassic Park based on the novel. Yeah, I would like an R-rated Jurassic Park movie, too, at this point. I would like to see something new. Do a Mulholland Drive written review. I probably will at some point. I haven't talked about David Lynch nearly enough, and I'm a huge, huge David Lynch fan. I always wanted to make my Twin Peaks Season 3 video. The original was directed by Spielberg. He at least knows what he's doing. Yes, he does. The video is lagging? Yeah. God, we somehow always become a really pervy chat, even though I don't try to steer it in that direction, but that's where we end up going. That's fine, though. I accept it. I accept you guys are all perverted bastards. Mulholland Drive was freaking awesome. I like that idea. Yeah, I'll talk about... I mean, I would have to do a video on Eraserhead. Blue Velvet's one of my favorite movies. I mean, me and Blood Money always planned on doing David Lynch videos, because that's all we talk about is David Lynch. But I don't... I haven't heard from Blood Money in a while, so I don't know. I would love to talk to him. He's a David Lynch expert. He lives where they film Twin Peaks. He has countless books on Twin Peaks and David Lynch stuff. He owns everything David Lynch has ever done. I mean, we're even talking about the that show David Lynch had in the 90s besides Twin Peaks and the radio show, that hotel show. I can't remember the name that was on HBO for like 2 episodes, but he does an amazing David Lynch impression too. That's really funny. That's like dead on, and he has all these stories. So I'd love to talk to him about it, because we have a lot of things we disagree on with David Lynch too, and that's what makes it interesting. Because I've been a David Lynch fan. I had a lot of friends who didn't like David Lynch. You know, it actually Twin Peaks Season 3 actually converted a lot of my friends who didn't like David Lynch, because they realized a lot of the stuff I was saying about him was true. But most of them like Blue Velvet and like A Straight Story. But I would love to do in-depth videos on David Lynch's films, and David Lynch as a person. Who I find endlessly fascinating. Yeah, you know, there's a lot to say about him, to be honest, if we're being honest. Is it as good as Martin Short's impression of David? It's pretty good. It's about as good as a David Lynch impression as I've ever heard. I've heard a lot of them, and they're usually pretty good, but his is like pretty perfect. It's his best impression, I think, because we do impressions back and forth. We do John Lovitz together. We just go back. It stinks. We just go back and forth. And sometimes he'll do a Jack Nicholson. That's kind of the cliche. But his David Lynch is the one I like a lot. That one's really funny. I think Blue Velvet's his best movie. But that's fine. I think Blue Velvet's actually easily his best movie. I don't know if he ever found the perfect balance of artistry with pop art mixed together as well as he did in Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet's in many ways his most accessible, while also being the most pure David Lynch film. And it's arguably the best American film of the 80s, quite frankly. I still like Eraserhead and Wild at Heart better than Mulholland Drive. Yeah, I probably like Eraserhead a little bit more than Mulholland Drive. I think Twin Peaks Season 3 now could be argued as his best work. Honestly, Episode 8's like Eraserhead on crack. He does stuff from Lost Highway in that. He does a lot of the stuff that was the Mulholland Drive TV series, like that he was going to do with that show. He does, he goes back to the original Twin Peaks. He does stuff that would be in Wild at Heart. I mean, Twin Peaks Season 3 is basically just like the ultimate thesis David Lynch doing, and I mean, it's probably the best thing I've seen in the last few years is Twin Peaks Season 3. Movie, television, anything. I can't think of anything I've seen in the last 5 years or so that's as good or as interesting or as fresh as what he did. And I can't think of any director that I love, like Scorsese or Woody Allen, or these guys who I love, Spielberg, that did anything comparable to what David Lynch did with Season 3 of Twin Peaks. It was really impressive. I mean, he went to a whole nother level on Season 3 of Twin Peaks. He did every genre, he did every single thing he had done in all of his films throughout his entire career. And then he also added things to it and did new things. And then he actually explained a lot of his work and mysteries and things that we had questioned for years. He actually gave answers to a lot of that stuff, which is crazy. And he's like, he's like 70. I mean, it was like Kurosawa making Ran and Kagemusha. It's like, how the hell did you make this movie this old? I mean, the show. He directed 18 episodes, and they're insane. I mean, yeah, there's some deliberate pacing. Don't get me wrong. David Lynch will fuck with you. He will make you wait for something. But man, the high moments of that show are incredible. They really are. Oh, Season 3, it's the best thing. It's amazing. It's so good. It's easily the best thing I've seen in like 5 years or so. I mean, it's amazing. It's everything we wanted Twin Peaks Season 3 to be, but in many ways it's everything we didn't expect, and it's surprising and beautiful and pure David Lynch. But he also gives you a lot that you wouldn't think he would give. He actually gives the audience a lot more than I probably thought he would. I thought it would be more like Inland Empire, but it's not. It's actually a mix of everything he ever did. And it adds an emotional depth to his whole body of work. It almost makes an argument for the David Lynch cinematic universe. Oh yeah, Blue Velvet for sure. Blue Velvet's one of my favorite movies ever in general. Even though I like all of his movies to varying degrees, Blue Velvet's just one of my favorite movies. I think the difference, and I've talked to Blood Money about this, I think it's Dennis Hopper. Because Dennis Hopper is an American original. He's such a unique actor. It's like De Niro being in Raging Bull. It's like De Niro, or Taxi Driver. It's like that kind of thing. Like, that collaboration between the craziness of Dennis Hopper, going back to, his work on Apocalypse Now or Easy Rider and all that. And then you see, which is funny because the guy who directed, it's pretty crazy. The guy who directed a film that came out right the same year, River's Edge, which just feels like a David Lynch movie. He went on to go work on Twin Peaks and work with David Lynch. He's actually very comparable to David Lynch, and I would highly recommend River's Edge with Dennis Hopper. It's that Dennis Hopper thing. Dennis Hopper brings an energy and a chaos and a uniqueness to that movie that I don't think other David Lynch films have. I think it has all the brilliance of David Lynch's films, and there's been great performances. The Elephant Man has great performances in it. But Dennis Hopper, his collaboration with David Lynch makes Blue Velvet really special in his filmography. Because you're really getting to see like the ultimate Dennis Hopper performance and character in Frank Booth, with David Lynch as a director, coming off the disaster of Dune and really kind of knowing how to transition into Blue Velvet. And Blue Velvet got some of the most beautiful scenes in film history with Kyle and her. It's also proto Twin Peaks. Kyle MacLachlan's basically playing Cooper in a sense. He's going on a mystery. He's a detective. He finds the ear, and then there's the underbelly of an innocent town in suburbia. That's so Twin Peaks. I mean, it's basically the prototype to what became Twin Peaks. But also, it's how he slowly becomes Frank Booth. He starts dressing like Frank Booth. The brilliance of Kyle MacLachlan as an actor is that he looks innocent, boy next door, but there's this sinister edge underneath that you can see. That's why he's so good in Twin Peaks season 3. But he seems like the most innocent, nice guy. That's why he could play a Cooper. But there's also this dark edge to him as an actor. And that really works well for the character in Blue Velvet, because he starts to become darker and obsessed with Frank Booth and wanting to be like him and go into this underground that we all have. We all side to ourselves that we want to go to see more fucked up things, or we've had nights where we, I talked about this with my Eyes Wide Shut analysis, but that's really what's so great about Blue Velvet, is that this kid seems innocent and like a good guy, and he's dating the girl, Laura Dern, and she's the innocence and all that, but he just wants to keep going to this chick's apartment and getting into this crazy underground world. Like a lot of us have that side to ourselves, even though he looks so innocent, And and Kyle MacLachlan finds this perfect balance between the two things. Yet you have Dennis Hopper, who is the complete chaos and crazy, over the top insanity representation of evil, And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful balancing act, but it's also David Lynch doing so many things. You don't know where it's going from scene to scene, but there's coherence, which I would argue Mulholland Drive does not have. I think Mulholland Drive doesn't have coherence, even though it's a really good movie. Blue Velvet's one of his more coherent films. And it's a mystery. It's a love story. It's a tale of the evils that are everywhere in the world, not just in the big cities. It's look at Reagan era, suburbia. It's a counter to Spielberg's films like E.T. and stuff like that. It connects things that you'll see kind of in Risky Business or Nightmare on Elm Street a few years previous. Stream just lagged, right? I mean, it's not my internet, guys. I don't know what to tell you. My internet is completely fine. It's OBS. It has to be OBS. Because my internet is at full bars and running fine. I have to say, it has been raining for like days now, and I don't know if the rain's messing with the signal. That could be it. So I don't know. It definitely could be that. I hope this... I mean, I will be moving to Columbus by July 3rd, so hopefully when I'm there, this won't be affecting it. But yeah, I apologize if the live stream keeps having trouble. I'm just gonna blame the weather, because my internet's fine, and I've been doing... I mean, I've had the same internet provider since I've been doing the show, so I don't know. I'm confused. Or it's OBS. It could be OBS has been messing up. I don't know. Maybe I'll start trying to do Google Hangouts and see if that works better. Because I had to set up Google Hangouts for the World Class Bullshitters thing. I don't know when I'm going to be on there, by the way. Jeff hasn't gotten back to me. I guess I need to email him. I just don't want to come off aggressive. But he hasn't emailed me at all about being on there after, like, we sent, like, 5 emails back and forth. Then we've talked a lot on the live streams together. So I don't know. I'm confused. I'm sorry about that, though, guys. I don't know what's up with the stream. I promise I've never had this issue before. This has never happened to me before, I promise. My performance is usually wonderful. By the way, so I've never been stung by a wasp before. Ever. So yesterday, I go to my girlfriend's house because we're getting stuff together to move. We're going there to get some boxes and crates and all that. And, a wasp stings me on my hand. Right? Never been stung before my entire life. Which is like, holy crap. Yeah, I guess Jeff lives in Cincinnati for World Class Bullshitters, and I'm going to be in Columbus, so I'm only been an hour and a half away. So who knows, maybe we'll do a live collaboration at some point. Just saying. I won't be that... I'm also like an hour and a half from Chris Stuckman, which I'm not doing that. But it's weird how many YouTubers live in Ohio. Like, even Logan and Jake Paul are from there. It's like, what the fuck is with YouTubers in Ohio? So I got stung by a freaking wasp, and I was like, God damn it, this has never happened to me in 28 years. So I go upstairs to a bedroom, and I'm reading a book before I'm going to take a shower. Because I was doing my leg workouts, and I was reading a Steve Martin book. Which is terrific, by the way. He's a very good writer. Surprisingly good at prose. Steve Martin's like a really good writer. Like, not just like, oh, this is a funny book. Well written. So, I'm not. I found out I wasn't allergic. So there's another wasp in the bedroom, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I take the book and I swat the damn thing. I hit it real hard. And it falls down. Yeah, YouTubers I've noticed lived in, like, California, Ohio, and Canada. There's not, I mean, it's weird. There's like certain states where there's a lot of YouTubers, successful YouTubers. Like, I could tell, like, even Sinatra says he lives in Ohio. Like, there's a lot of YouTubers in Ohio. Yeah, Steve Martin, I would highly recommend his books. He wrote this, Shop Girl's his first book, but he wrote this terrific book, The Pleasure of My Company. Great book. If you didn't know Steve Martin wrote it, you would just say this is some great writer. And he also wrote a biography on his stand-up career called Born Standing Up, which is not as eloquent as his other two books because it's just nonfiction and it's him telling the truth. But all three I'd highly recommend. And the audiobooks are also terrific. But the books themselves, I own the books. They're amazingly well written. I mean, it's so weird. I mean, he wrote Roxanne and L.A. Story, so those are good screenplays. But he's a really good writer. His prose are efficient. He's definitely got some Jane Austen influence a little bit. But all sorts of influences. He's a really funny, right? He comments on literary styles with his writing. He's clearly a very well-read guy. So he's it's kind of like when Norm Macdonald wrote his memoir, and he was doing stuff that was Hunter S. Thompson and then Dostoevsky and some Steinbeck. These are guys who are well-read, and they can kind of mimic these styles in a funny book. Are his fiction books, or are they How to Be Funny? They're fiction. Two of his books are fiction, and one book is him just telling you how his stand-up career. It's just a story about him being a kid and his stand-up career, and how he started, got big, and then quit. It's just a biography basically on his stand-up career, but it's very good. It's like watching a good documentary. His other books are fiction, and they're wonderful. They're wonderful, but very well reviewed books. I was surprised. I'd got Born Standing Up because I wanted to read about, because I'm kind of a comedy buff. I'm obsessed with National Lampoon and Second City and stand up, and so I get a lot of books and I listen to a lot of stuff and I watch stuff about comedy. So I got the book and I was like, man, this is a really good book. So I went and got his other two books, Shop Girl and Pleasure of My Company, and I was just so surprised how well written they were. They're just really good books. He's a good writer. I mean, I always knew Steve Martin was really smart and talented, and I'm a big fan of him. And I've been a fan of his for a long time, and he's a big influence on me. But I can't believe he's a good... I mean, he's a good actor. He's a good comedian. And he's also a good writer, like a good novelist, which is just, very rare. He's a really talented guy. Very interesting dude. So I would highly recommend, especially that book, The Pleasure of My Company, I think is a terrific little book. It's only about 170 pages. It's not a long read, but it's really good. And I'm reading Shop Girl now, and it's really good. It's a little meta. Yeah, his books are a little meta because it's almost, especially Pleasure of My Company, he's commenting on tropes kind of in literature and stuff that you've seen by certain writers and stuff like that. It's Woody Allen-esque, and Woody Allen's a very good writer. If you like Woody Allen stuff, you'll probably like Steve Martin's books. If you're into that kind of thing, then you'll probably like his book. Because Woody Allen's also very good. His plays are very good. And Woody Allen wrote a couple books that are very good. Woody Allen's just a good writer. Steve Martin's a good writer. They've been doing that for a while, so much that it was a plot point in the horrible Julia Roberts rom-com, America's Sweethearts. Yeah, that's not very... And I love Julia Roberts rom-coms, man. My Best Friend's Wedding and Notting Hill are great. Love those movies. So anyway, what was I talking about before I went on the Steve Martin thing? Oh, the wasp, right? So I hit the wasp with the frickin' book, and I think it's dead. So I take my clothes off in the bedroom so I can go shower, and I leave my shorts in there. And I think to myself, I better make sure that wasp is dead, or that motherfucker's gonna come back to get revenge on me. Even though it's an insect and it's dumb, that motherfucker knows. And I've already been stung once today. So I go take a shower. Alan started as writer. No, Martin didn't start as a writer. No, he started doing magic at Disney in California. He was a magician and did like vaudeville stuff and played banjo and juggled and stuff like that. And then he transitioned into stand-up comedy. Pat, why did you decline an invite to the High Council? Because the invite was for July when it circulated back to World Class Bullshitters, and Jeff asked me if I would prefer to do a one-on-one video with him. or be on World Class Bullshitters, or do the High Council. And I said I would probably prefer to do the World Class Bullshitters. Although maybe I should have taken the solo video, because he just did a video on Saturday and all that. So maybe I should, because he hasn't gotten back in touch with me, so I don't know. He asked me, I mean, I would go on the High Council, but he kind of made it seem like I only had one option from the email, that I had to pick one. And I like the World Class Bullshitters guy, and I like their channel, and I think I would get more attention from that than if I just went on a High Council episode. If I went on the High Council and did well, I could become a regular on the High Council, so maybe that would have been a better choice. But I don't know. I don't really want to become part of that, because I feel like the High Council, they have their own thing. And I don't really feel like I need to join. I think they have a good thing going, and there's a lot of big personalities on there, and I think me going into that would really, I don't know. I'm a fan of the High Council. I don't know if it's a right fit. Where I think if I went on World Class Bullshitters and just talked to the guys and we made jokes, I think we could have a really good time, and I think it'd be a really good video. You know. I don't know if I could consistently keep doing the High Council stuff like that, and I don't know how. And I basically just don't want to cramp their style. Not all species do that, but some wasp will leave pheromones on you and sting you and attract others, especially if you're close to the nest. I think that did happen. Okay, because here's what happened. I think that is what happened, Bathory. So I come out of the shower, I put my shorts on, I start feeling something crawling on my leg inside of my shorts. Then I fear sting, 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 like 3 or 4 stings, and I smack my leg and the wasp falls out that I hit earlier with the book. This was like a horror movie. I was like, what the hell? This was a revenge plot. So the one wasp stings me downstairs in a chair, I kill that, then this other one, of all places for it to go, it didn't go... It was by the lamp. It didn't go over to my shirt. It didn't go on the wall. It went in my shorts. This thing was like right by my balls. This could have been very serious. This was scary, man. You do not want to get stung in the balls. So it was just stinging my leg like it was waiting for me. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to wait in this guy's shorts. By my last dying breath, I will stingeth thee. And I mean, I was like, you know, you could have lived, dude. If you'd have just stayed over in your corner... I was going to leave you alone. I accepted defeat. Your skeleton was too strong, Wasp, man. It's on the outside. I can't do it. But then, he stayed in my shorts and waited. And I got stung twice that day. I'd never been stung my whole life, 28 years. 2 different wasps came after me. Son of a bitch. I hate it. I hate those things. It didn't hurt that bad, but it was still like, F you. The first one I can kind of forgive, right? It got on my hand, I was in the chair, whatever. The other one, though, it was the planning of it. It was the fact that it had a strategy. That it didn't just fly up and sting me. That it waited in my shorts, stealthy-like. Like it was Metal Gear Wasp. And I then waited till I got the shorts on my legs before it made its attack. It didn't just fly out and attack me when I first walked in the room. It waited. It was being patient. You know? I mean, I won the war ultimately, but I have to give it to that one for winning the battle. I gotta give it up to it. I was outsmarted. I was defeated in battle. And, you know, I guess it was gonna happen eventually. Hopefully someday I also lose my virginity. Wasp are vengeful, man. They're relentless and pretty smart but it came off intelligent. It was weird though. How would it know about my shorts? It can't be that smart. It can't know that that I'm going to take these shorts off. It can't be that smart that it knows to hide in my shorts to sting me. There's no way it's that smart. I think it's smart for a bug, but that's some pretty smart shit. To like hide in my shorts and wait. I got a genius wasp is what I got. I mean, it's crazy. It wasn't even that aggressive, it was just patient. You know? It wasn't like it flew at me in attack mode. I've had that happen before in life, but I've been able to avoid it. Oh, I was gonna make that joke. Yeah, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant joke. Yeah, I was gonna say I got stung by a wasp, but who hasn't in this economy, right? No, I was waiting. I came in thinking, how do I make a joke about wasps without just doing something that wasn't done in a Whit Stillman movie? I was like, how do I make a joke about wasps? Yeah, and Whit Stillman's father, I believe, coined that term. But I didn't know. Yeah, I don't think they're that smart. It just was a coincidence. It was just one hell of a coincidence, I gotta say. Unless it really liked the scent of my junk. But I was going to, maybe it liked me. Maybe it was trying to get some action, you know? Maybe it was like, hey, you sting me, I sting you, then you sting me. I do like you bringing that up, David. I was trying to fit that joke in there somehow, and I couldn't figure it out before I was going to tell this story today. I go, how do I make this about wasps? You know, I don't know. Anyway, Incredibles 2. $80 million this weekend. 80.9 million. A lot of people have talked about this being a big second week drop. It is. 55% is big for an animated film. Finding Dory held better than this. A lot of other films from Pixar have held better than this. I would credit this to a few things. Jurassic World overperformed and took a lot of the money from this, I think, because that's a big kids film too. Kids go see the Jurassic Park movies. And I would also say that it was front-loaded more so than a lot of the other films. You know, Finding Dory made $135 million. Incredibles 2 made $182 million. That's a huge opening weekend. Now, I'm not saying... Now, you could make an argument that the word of mouth for this film isn't as great as some people might think it is. And I don't think it is either. I don't think people are loving this film. I think it's mixed. I think some people love it and some people just think it's okay. And some people think it's bad. Like, I didn't think it was that great. So, but I've heard other people say it's just as good as the first and amazing. So, it's across the board. But having said that, right, this is a big drop for an animated film like this. And a film that's apparently being loved. But $80 million in your second weekend is still freaking huge. That's a lot of money. $80 million is a huge second weekend. Even if it's a big drop percentage-wise, that's still a lot of money just from a cash point of view. So it's already $350 million domestic. It should be able to make $500 million. I mean, if it doesn't, that would be crazy. I mean, that is a steeper drop. A lot of people would have thought the drop was going to be in the 40s. Like 45%. So it is bigger than I thought, but still, $80 million, $350 million domestic. This is a $200 million film. $485 million worldwide. You know, it hasn't opened everywhere yet, so, you know, even if this ends up $450 million domestic and like 400-something million foreign, or, you know, if it still makes like 850, 900, that's still a huge hit. Even if it doesn't make like $1 billion, or it's not as big as maybe it looked like based off its opening weekend, it's still $350 million in 2 weeks. That would be a great final total. That $350 million would be an amazing final total domestically for this movie. So they've already made their money, and the studio makes more off the ticket price in the first few weeks than they do later. So they want to make this money as quick as possible. You know, I mean, 350 million, that's more successful than Coco and a lot of other films. Most animated films don't make that much money. Zootopia didn't make that domestically. You know, 350 million domestic in 2 weeks is huge. So, yes, you're going to hear a lot of people say this is a big second week drop. A surprising blah blah, but you still have to look at the whole picture, and as the whole picture, $350 million in 2 weeks is amazing. So it's really hard to say it as a negative. I can't see how it's a big hit. Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely doing better than Solo, no question. Yeah, I've never been stung by a bee, actually. So I've never really been stung by anything. And I lived in Texas for years. There was things to sting you, and nothing ever got me. You know, for 20 years, and then I moved up here, and nothing really got. I don't know why. Maybe it's my blood. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the box office Addict film of the week. Jurassic World Fallen Franchise, which is what I called my video, and then Adam on Your Movie Sucks made that joke yesterday, and I was like, I'm not saying he stole it from me, it's just like everyone's gonna be like, funny joke, Adam. Like, no. I'm not, I say things Red Letter Media says. When you review stuff, we all say the same stuff. My friend messaged me and he goes, man, I'm glad I didn't watch your live stream. Every point I made in my review of Jurassic World's what you said. And I'm like, I know. I mean, it's hard not to say the same things. The jokes are there. So, this movie had a great opening weekend. There's no way to spin this as a negative. This is terrific. Some people are going to say, well, it didn't make the $208 million that the first movie made. Who gives a shit, quite frankly? I mean, this is way better than I think anyone thought this was going to do. The first Jurassic World cost $150 million. This one only cost $20 million more. Now, having said that, this does have a $185 million marketing campaign, which came out today. That's pretty damn high. So they have a lot of money in this movie. They have over $300 million in this movie. But, the promotion's probably going to pay off. The toys are probably going to sell. People are probably buying merchandise. I mean, I could just tell you my nephew buys Jurassic World stuff. So I think they probably did that with good cause. But the first film cost $150 million. It was a famous story. Jurassic World opened to $208 million. It broke the opening weekend record before Force Awakens came out the year. It made $652 million domestic. It solidified Chris Pratt as an A-list movie star following Guardians of the Galaxy. It made $1.6 billion worldwide. It was only surpassed that year because Force Awakens was such a big hit. It was a major hit. A lot of that had to do with nostalgia. Them waiting a long time to bring the franchise back. The premise of the theme park being open. Chris Pratt being in demand at the time. Dinosaurs not losing any popularity, relevance in the time that Jurassic Park is coming out. Basically, this franchise has reached a Star Wars level of being solidified. Maybe even more so in some ways with certain demographics. I mean, I just got this. This is amazing how well the Jurassic Park franchise has stayed relevant. I mean, it might be because there's a lack of dinosaur movies that aren't Jurassic Park films and people want dinosaur movies and we don't get them anymore. I think that could be a factor. People just like dinosaurs. This is a better opening weekend than Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, yes, this is a sequel to one of the most successful films ever made. So theoretically, it should have a good opening weekend. But this is the kind of example I'd use when people think Avatar 2 is not going to do well and be a bomb and not make money because it won't reach Avatar's $2.7 billion. It probably won't, but does that mean Avatar won't have an opening weekend that's like $130 million and it could still make 300 something million and still make $1.5 billion worldwide? I'd argue it could. The foreign market's bigger now than when Avatar 1 came. I'd argue Avatar could make these. I'm not saying it's going to make the money the first Avatar made at all, but I think, if the Avatar sequels all make like $1 billion a piece, that's not a bomb. Even with how expensive they are, that's not a bomb by any means. Just like the Hobbit films each made like $1 billion, Yeah, they didn't do as well as they could have, but they weren't bombs. This is an overperformance. All the tracking was saying 130 million. All the tracking was saying anywhere from 115 to 130 million. You saw this on every website, every projection, everywhere. Nobody was saying that this film would overperform. And then the reviews weren't good. The first film got pretty mediocre reviews, 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. This film got pretty negative reviews, mixed to negative. It has 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people don't like this movie, myself included. I think it's a pretty bad movie. The marketing was bad, a lot of people said. Overall, it just looked like this film at best, just because of name recognition, Chris Pratt, that it would make 130 million, which would still be a really good opening weekend. But this film overperforming really says something about how stable this franchise is, even the new series of Jurassic World. This also shows the word of mouth. This has an A- cinema score. 150 million is a great opening weekend. This is the second best opening weekend for Universal. Okay, so even if it is, $58 million less than the previous film, I don't think anyone expected this film to open as well as the first film. This isn't like, and you gotta think about this, Last Jedi opened, $27 million less than Force Awakens, even though, it still opened over 200 million. So this really isn't, this is, to me, an amazing performance. I think this is an amazing performance. I don't like the film. I don't have, a card on the table. I don't have anything in this fight, but I like good box office. I like to be fair and unbiased when I talk about the box office. The numbers are the numbers. You can't argue the numbers. That is a good result, man. That is a great opening. Those are Disney type numbers. That is amazing opening weekend. That is way better than what I thought it could have done. And when you combine that with the current foreign total, this movie is definitely going to make $1 billion, if not more than that. This movie could end up making $1.3 billion or something like that. So this could end up making Last Jedi, Black Panther money. And the budget's $170 million. So yeah, they have a lot of marketing, but this is a hit. This is straight up a hit movie. Even if it doesn't make as much as the previous film, this is still a hit. It's going to be, you know, unadjusted for ticket price. It's going to be the second most successful Jurassic Park movie. The first one, obviously, adjusted for ticket price, is one of the most successful films ever made, easily. I mean, that film made $1 billion in 1993. I mean, that's crazy. But still, this is a mega hit. This franchise is not going anywhere. Jurassic World 3 is definitely going to happen. I hope they don't keep Colin Trevorrow around. But there's no way to spin this as a negative. This is a great opening weekend for Universal. This is a great summer at the box office, man. I mean, once again, Ocean's 8, $100 million. Incredibles 2 at $350 million. $300 million for Deadpool 2. Avengers, $670 million. Hereditary's doing good for a low-budget horror film. Book Club did pretty well. You know, I mean, a lot of these films are doing great. And that's a lot of money. There's going to be A Quiet Place, $328 million worldwide on a $17 million budget. You know, you have your wrinkle in times and that. You have some films that bomb, but for the most part, this is a booming summer at the box office. All of the big tentpole films that were expected to make a lot of money pretty much performed where they should have if they didn't overperform. I'd say Infinity War, Incredibles 2, and Jurassic World have all performed better than what they were expected to do. Probably the only one that didn't was Deadpool. And even it did $300 million domestic's huge. So this is amazing. So let's look at the current worldwide numbers. The film opened, I think, a couple weeks ago internationally. And it's already made $561 million foreign. I think last week it was like $350 million. And a few days ago, it was at 466. So $561 million at the foreign box office. Huge. $170 million budget. $150 million opening weekend. I would make the argument this film has already made a profit for the studio and broke even. I'm pretty sure it has. So $711 million worldwide after a few weeks in release, and it's just now open domestically. $300 million domestic seems like a foregone conclusion. So you're looking at an easy $1 billion. But I would argue that you're looking at probably something that's going to make $1.2, $1.3 billion. We'll have to see how it holds at the box office with the coming weeks, but this is a straight up hit. The only thing that it has to suffer from is it's in the shadow of the previous film that just made a lot more money overall, but that doesn't... If Jurassic World, the first one, had performed this well, if it had opened to $150 million and made this, it'd be a huge hit. So that's all I gotta say. This is good box office. So let's look at the performance of Jurassic World. Also, this just really solidifies Chris Pratt even more. Chris Pratt is a movie star, especially when he's in these tentpole films. Yes, Passengers had disappointing box office, but it got pretty bad reviews. It didn't look that great. Still made $100 million. Yes, The Magnificent Seven didn't make as much as some of us thought it would because it had Denzel in it and all these big names, but still, wasn't a bomb. I mean, let's just go back to Chris Pratt's big kickoff year when he was in Her, the great Spike Jonze film. Of course, he's Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec and all that. He was in a few movies, you know, like The 5-Year Engagement. Everyone was really liking a Moneyball. But then he was in the Lego Movie. He was the main voice in that. Phil Lord and Chris Miller's film. That was a huge hit. And then, following up that, he stars in Guardians of the Galaxy the same year. Star-Lord. James Gunn gives him the lead role. Becomes a breakout hit movie. $773 million worldwide. Movie star status. Chicks like him. Guys like him. He's got an everyman quality, but still a movie star. Then he's in Jurassic World the following year. This film opens to $208 million, breaks the opening weekend record, makes $1,671 million worldwide. He's considered across the board the best part of the movie. Chris Pratt is right to the A-list at this point. Huge jump. So now he's starring in movies like Magnificent Seven and Passengers. Once again, not bombs, right? But you would think maybe his career's kind of petering out. These films aren't doing as well as these films. Then he comes right back with this franchise. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Well, it didn't make as much as some of us thought. I thought this would make $1 billion. It still makes $863 million worldwide. You know, still a very successful film. Just not as successful as I thought it would be. Just because how big the first one was. Then he's in Infinity War, right? And he's a big part of Infinity War. Chris Pratt's a big part of this movie. He's in the whole finale. He gets a lot of scenes with... I think he's one of the best parts of the movie. I think his performance, and I think the Guardian scenes. He's in the movie a lot. The Guardians are a huge part of this movie. This is one of the most successful films of all time. It's the, you know, third most successful film ever made, you know, unadjusted for ticket price inflation. So, he's in a $2 billion film. Now, you gotta think. He's gonna be in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's going to make a lot of money. He's going to come back in Infinity War Part 2. That's going to make a lot of money. So he's got 2 more big films to be in yet. So Chris Pratt's, you know, got those at least locked up. Now with this, after the huge performance of Infinity War, and last year Guardians did really well, now he has Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And it opened better than Guardians 2. And it opened better than a lot of these films except Jurassic World 1 and Infinity War. So here you go, $150 million opening weekend. So Chris Pratt is a straight-up movie star at this point. No debate. Some people thought maybe like Jennifer Lawrence, how she's kind of lost her stardom. Was that happening to Chris Pratt? It's not. He's as big as ever, I would say. And his current worldwide box office is in $7.4 billion. And this is all just since 2014. Within 4 years, his career has just become so huge. And I think a lot of it has to do with he's a nice guy. In the real life, Chris Pratt, Christian Pratt as I call him, is a nice guy and a likable person. And that makes people want to go see his movies. He hits many different demographics. He gets the liberal audience, he gets the conservative audience, he gets rural America, and he gets the cities. And he you know, he's one of those guys that dudes likes and chicks like for different reasons. He's got sex appeal, but not too much. You know, it's a balance of a lot of things here. Chris Pratt is good career choices. I would say this is a good argument for why he should be Indiana Jones, for the fact that Harrison Ford's old, and Steven Spielberg's really not in his prime. And even if the Indiana Jones movie they make isn't good, I think the only way to really reboot the character and do the James Bond thing well is you need a movie star who people want to go see. Like you know, Alden Ehrenreich's not a movie star. He had no name recognition for Solo. So that didn't help that movie at all. And Solo's not really a character I think you could do that with. Chris Pratt now has shown consistently he has name recognition. I think if you cast him as Indiana Jones, you're looking at an opening weekend over $100 million. Guaranteed. I think if you cast anyone else, you don't have that opening weekend. Maybe someone like Bradley Cooper, you could argue. But I think Chris Pratt, now that he's had all these films in a row make this kind of money... if I was Disney, if I was Lucasfilm, I would be reconsidering a new Indiana Jones film with old Harrison Ford and Spielberg. I would be immediately thinking, let's get some young director, even a J.J. Abrams. As much as I hate to say it, I'm just saying from a money standpoint, not from a creative. But I'd be thinking, let's get some director. Let's get like a Dan Trachtenberg who made 10 Cloverfield Lane. Let's get Brad, but let's give somebody a shitload of money, and let's give Chris Pratt the $25 million paycheck, and let's put him as Indiana Jones, because now that he's got these Jurassic Park films and the Guardians films, and now he's in the Avengers films, this dude has franchises to back him up that's going to keep him relevant. He's doing great at award shows. He's great in interviews. Even his divorce didn't impact his career at all with Anna Faris. So, yeah, I would like to be Chris Pratt's agent right now. Let me put it that way. This guy's career is, you know, he looks like he's got something that could last a long time. But they're going to make indie films. There's no way they're not going to. I mean, yeah, I prefer if they made no Star Wars Indiana Jones films ever again, but they're going to. So there's nothing we can do about it. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do the smartest way you can. And I'd say the smartest way to do it's Chris Pratt. He's clearly auditioning for Indiana Jones in both of these movies. It's not even debatable. His posture, what he's trying to do, how he looks, what he's trying... It's clear he's trying to get that role. You can just tell. And if I was Disney right now, I would put all my money on this guy. It's like Robert Downey Jr. They gave him all the money, and for 10 years it paid off as Iron Man, and it still paid off. I would make, I mean, because Universal has Chris Pratt right now. Disney just doesn't have this guy. Universal has this guy in a franchise with him. I would really try to lock this guy up right now. Because where we live in an era where there's not many movie stars left. You got, like, The Rock is a movie star. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man's a movie star. You know, a lot of people that used to be movie stars, like Tom Cruise and Will Smith, don't have the name unless they're in franchises like Mission Impossible or something. Chris Pratt is showing he can do many different franchises. Don't get me wrong, if Harrison Ford was like in his 40s, I would love to see him as Indiana Jones again, or even in his 50s. If this was like 1995, Harrison Ford, yeah, of course, I'd love to see him back as Indiana Jones. But do I want to see 80-year-old Indiana Jones doing? No, it sucked in Kingdom of Indiana Jones doesn't work as an old man. It's stupid. It's like if James Bond was 75. It's so stupid. It just doesn't make any sense. If I was Lucasfilm right now, I would put all of my cards on the table with Chris Pratt. No, I mean, it's not a crush. It's just the money, man. Look at where he's at. Only The Rock, I think, has a comparable box office recently. I don't think anyone could be compared to Chris Pratt right now. He's the lead in a lot of these things, and he has a huge role in Avengers. Yes, but you don't need a lot of range to be Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones isn't a character that requires a vast amount of range. You basically just have to be charismatic, funny, and be able to do action. I would say Harrison Ford had limited range as well as an actor. So I don't think that... It's not like he's in a... I wouldn't want to see him in a drama film, like an Oscar-type movie that's supposed to be serious. I wouldn't want to see him in that, but do I think he could play Indiana Jones? Yes. I don't think Indiana Jones is a hard character to play. I think you basically just have to smirk a lot, tell jokes, do the action scenes, and be a good physical actor, which he is. It's kind of like how good Keanu Reeves is in John Wick. Because there's limits to what you're supposed to do in that role, where if, I don't want to see Keanu Reeves in a serious, Holocaust movie. So I think that's debatable if Chris Pratt's a bigger movie star than The Rock. I don't know. I think he just might be in better franchises. I think the fact he's in Jurassic Park and Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if he could have made Jumanji the hit it was, or like... I think they're pretty close, actually. And I mean, he's probably a bigger traditional movie star, but The Rock does seem to have more crossover to different things, and you also got to factor in how big his wrestling career was and how much money he made in that too. So, The Rock's not just a successful movie star; he's a successful person altogether. He was huge in the '90s and made a lot of money and sold a lot of merchandise, and he also does TV. He's on that show on HBO now. So The Rock, I think, just has all these different things he does. He's also a producer. He's producing his own movies now and producing stuff like, a Fast and the Furious spinoff, and he produced stuff like Rampage the Skyscraper. So I think The Rock's probably a better businessman than Chris Pratt, but Chris Pratt's probably got a little bit more of a movie star thing going on right now. But I don't think there's many actors out there right now that have that movie star thing going on. Chris Pratt's definitely one of them. ScarJo's pretty played out. Unfortunately, yeah, I think at one point Scarlett Johansson was a big star, like when Lucy came out and she was prime in the Avengers films and all that. I think for a few years she was a huge star. Oh yeah, I think Chris Pratt's a better actor than The Rock. I mean, but they both have that same thing. They play to their strengths. If you need a likable, passable guy like Star-Lord who's funny and charismatic enough and could do some action and comedy, if you need The Rock to do that stuff, you have that. They're not getting cast in serious dramatic films. That's not the movies they get cast in. You give that to, that's where you go get Gary Oldman. That's where you go get someone like that to go be in a movie like that. You don't cast Chris Pratt in that kind of movie, which is fine. They're big with kids. My nephews all love Chris Pratt because of the Jurassic Park movies. I mean, but I think this solidifies him even more so than he already was. I mean, I would say he's got another 5 years in him. They say for every bomb you only get another film and then you're done. He hasn't had a bomb in a while. Even if he starred in a couple bombs, he could recover because he has Guardians 3 and he has Infinity War Part 2 and he has Jurassic World Part 3 that's going to come out. So he at least has 3 more films that are going to be hits, no matter what he does. Unless it comes out he Me Too'd someone, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's the story here. Is this franchise is solid. Steven Spielberg's going to have a big payday. Colin Trevorrow's sadly going to keep working because this kind of bounces him back because he wrote the movie and helped produce it. So he probably regrets not directing this movie now because he went to go work on episode 9 and then got fired. He's probably thinking now, like, son of a bitch, I should have done Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Because this would have just locked him up for a trilogy. And the big story is Chris Pratt is Chris Pratt and is definitely a movie star. So you have the franchise. Spielberg's going to keep making money. Colin Trevorrow's not kicked out of Hollywood totally yet because this film is successful. And Chris Pratt. That's the thing to look at here. And this is a busy movie summer, and things are performing better than everyone's been predicting. Yeah, it sucks Kevin Spacey couldn't have been in a greater film playing Lex Luthor. I really like Kevin Spacey as an actor, obviously. I mean, of course. Oh, so Kevin Spacey's underneath the rock. That's what he's doing. He's living under Dwayne Johnson's house. Plot twist. The Indoraptor is the only one who can stop Thanos. That's what we need, is the crossover with Star-Lord and Owen and the dinosaurs and the Avengers. That's the movie we really need. That's the ultimate crossover. I mean, what do you guys think about this? I mean, you guys surprised too? This is a big hit, right? I'm not crazy here. I don't think I'm I mean, this is what even everyone's saying on Deadline, boxoffice.com, and Hollywood Reporter. You know, this is a great opening weekend. Once again, I don't like this movie, but $150 million opening weekend for a sequel to this franchise, I think, is great. I think this is as good as they could have hoped for. Especially since a lot of people didn't like the first movie. I mean, there's a lot of mixed word of mouth. It made a lot of money. But a lot of people like me didn't like it. I know a lot of people like it. So this still made a lot of, you know, even though they might have lost some of the audience, they kept the majority of the audience, which is a huge win. You know, I mean, and this is a sequel that's, 3 years later? Oh, I agree. It is an Indiana Jones promo, this, guys. It's kind of like when you watch The Guest, and it's clear they're trying to get Dan Stevens to play James Bond, and it's an audition. Even that scene where Chris Pratt's running it through, taking the guys out at the end of the movie. All this, he's really trying. They even they do his facial hair and his haircut, and they have him dressed like Indiana Jones. He's wearing the pants, and he's got the beard and everything. Like, they're really trying, and even the lighting, some of the framing and how they put him in a shot, it's like they're trying to mimic Indiana Jones. They did it in the first movie, but in this movie, it's really like a parrot. That's what they're trying to do. Like, let you know, like, they're trying to help out, because Spielberg work on this. I mean, I clearly think there's some talks about this going on behind it. Somebody's talking to someone about trying to get this to happen. Is my opinion. I think Spielberg and whoever in the other producers and Chris Pratt's agent and them are trying to get this to happen. And be like, we need to make Indiana Jones. This performance could help that happen. Yeah, dinosaurs will always sell, I agree. And there's a lack of dinosaur movies. So that's another factor too, is that this they pretty much have a monopoly on dinosaurs with this franchise, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't see it either, Bathory. There hasn't been an original, unique dinosaur movie in years. There hasn't been anything with a new premise. Now, Bryce Dallas Howard, I don't think she factors into this at all. I think any female actress in Hollywood could be playing this part and would probably be doing better. She's awful in these movies. I think Jeff Goldblum probably helped a little bit with the marketing, just because people are like, oh, Ian Malcolm. The director, if he was smart, even though he's a really good director, I like his other films. The Monster Calls, The Impossible, The Orphanage are all good films. And The Impossible did really well. It made $180 million. The Orphanage made $78 million. So this guy's had a couple successful movies. Well, Monster Calls didn't do that great. I think it cost more than it made. I think it cost like 35-40 million. But all three of those movies I think are really good. But yeah, if he was smart, he would sign on for the next movie with the dinosaurs out in civilization and all that. Because he has a third film that could theoretically make $1 billion. So if this could set him up to make one for you, one for me, he could make a couple indie films that he wanted to make if he stays with this franchise. I don't really blame him for the quality of this movie. I blame that almost entirely on Colin Trevorrow and Spielberg. Oh yeah, no, Bryce used to be really, really cute. I mean, she's still not a bad-looking chick, but she did kind of lose something. How would you feel about Indiana Jones movies being like James Bond, casting different actors in these? I've been saying they should have done that from the beginning. I think they should have done that in the 90s. Like in 1995, they should have recast him. Spielberg always wanted to do a James Bond movie. And he basically, he said this many times, and Kevin Smith is quoted when he saw Raiders. He goes, I just saw an American Indiana Jones and it was better than, I saw American James Bond, it was better than James Bond. Raiders is very James Bond. Yes, it does go back to the movie serials and all that, but people ignored the James Bond similarities with the Indiana Jones film. Temple of Doom is very James Bond. So I in the mid-90s would have cast someone like, let's say, a Dennis Quaid to play Indiana Jones for a couple movies. And then in the 2000s, cast someone else to play Indiana Jones. You know, like James Bond, you make one every 5, 6, 7. You get a new actor every like 8 years or so. And I'd only make a couple films per actor. I wouldn't make like 5 Indiana Jones films with each actor. But, you know, you make 2 with one. And then we could be in the era now where Chris Pratt playing it wouldn't seem that crazy. I think they could have always rebooted the Indiana Jones character, because as Mike said in his great Kingdom of Crystal Skull review, people like the idea of the character, not necessarily the character himself, just like James Bond. That's why he always has the whip and the hat and the jacket, because that says more about the character. He's an idea. He represents an archetype. It's not that he's this brilliantly complex three-dimensional character. It's the idea of Indiana Jones is great. What he represents for being a man, just like James Bond did. You can just cast different actors to place that part. And you just got to keep making adventures, because there's unlimited stories to tell, like James Bond. Let's put him in this setting with this villain. Indiana Jones, those 3 movies really show you could put him in different settings with different stories. The original trilogy, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But, you know, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, if it had a younger director, George Lucas hadn't been involved and had a younger actor, it would have been a better movie, I'd argue, you know? I think that one kind of showed, yeah, you can't do the sequel thing, but that still made a shitload of money. So I think they should have done that way back in the day. I think they could have made a lot more Indiana Jones movies and made a lot of money. And just like the James Bond franchise, not every film would be great. You would get a mediocre one, but then you would occasionally get the Golden Eyes or the Casino Royales, you know, or, you know, that kind of the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you know. Every other film, if it was really good, like James Bond, I mean, the James Bond franchise showed way back the formula of what a lot of superhero films do now, where you can reboot the character, like Spider-Man, or you could do stuff with Batman and all that. They've done it, and it's been successful. But people might have got fed up of Chris Pratt by the time they get around to recasting Indy. I wonder that. I would have agreed with you a couple years ago, but after the performance of like Infinity War, Guardians 2 in this movie, I don't think people are fed up with Chris Pratt, and I don't think he's going anywhere. Once you have these many movies that make this kind of money, he's such an international star now too. Like, he's so known by international audiences now, too, because of the franchises he's in. I don't see how him playing Indiana Jones doesn't make $1 billion. I just don't see it. It would surprise me, to be quite frank. I would be shocked if he didn't. You know, and even in Indiana Jones 5, why not just have Harrison Ford be older and pass the torch to Chris Pratt? Like, Chris Pratt's a student or someone who worked with him, and Harrison Ford could be in it, but he doesn't do any action. He just stays at the university and sends Chris Pratt out on adventures for him, and like he calls him on the phone and stuff. That could be a really good transition film too. Maybe he doesn't play Indiana Jones, and you don't call it Indiana Jones. Just like Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't called Raiders of the, you know, it wasn't called Indiana Jones at first. It was called Raiders of the Lost Ark. Then they called it Indiana Jones. Maybe you make a new film and you don't call it Indiana Jones, but it's an Indiana Jones sequel. You call it the name of the adventure, and Chris Pratt's playing the new character that Indiana decides to send out on this adventure. Like, hey, I need you to go out. And it's Chris Pratt and Harrison Ford together, but Harrison Ford does none of the action scenes. He just stays back, writes papers, is on the phone and stuff like that. I could see that being a hit movie, for sure. And Spielberg working with Chris Pratt, that might actually, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And then you just keep the series going with that new character playing stuff in the Indiana Jones universe. You're using the universe, and that way you can make it a period film, like this film would take place in the, you know, the 60s or 70s. But you don't necessarily reboot the character. And that way you could keep making Indiana Jones sequels with Chris Pratt's character for a few movies. And it takes place in the universe, you just don't call it Indiana Jones. But the trailer would obviously give away that it's Indiana Jones film and all that. I think that could be a really smart marketing thing. Just, you know. Yeah, I agree. Han Solo would have been a much better character if he wasn't still a smuggler and he's an old man and he's in action scenes. It's very silly. I think it would be much better if Han Solo was like retired basically and was with Leia and just did behind the scenes stuff. I think that would be much better. You know, you just have to come up with an exciting title like a Raiders of the Lost Ark. You'd have to come up with a great hook and put Chris Pratt in it. And think about the trailer. That could be a really fun trailer. Like Chris Pratt's on the phone, like Dr. Jones, you know, and Harrison Ford's on the phone with him, like, I wouldn't do that, you know. And then we show Chris Pratt swinging with the whip and everything like that. And he's a new character, you know, named like, you know, Ben or something like that, you know, and you just have him go back. You know, that could really work. That could really be a hit. Any female actress you'd like to see opposite Chris Pratt in an indie movie? Eva Green. Although she might be a little old for that now, but she's amazing. Let me think real quick. God, all the actors I'm thinking of are a little older. Like Kate Beckinsale and that, who I really like. But it's like, yeah, she might be too old. I guess you have to go someone like kind of in their 30s. I don't know. Just cast some young hot model chick like they do in James Bond movies. Who knows? Like it worked for Skyfall. They just cast new chicks, some couple actors in that, and that worked out. Emma Stone, maybe if they could get her. Emma Stone, maybe I would like to see with Chris Pratt in an Indiana Jones movie. I think she could do a really good job. Yeah, I just said Emma Stone, yeah. Emma Stone? Oh, Eva Green's about us. She's just walking sex. That woman's so attractive. But yeah, I could see, yeah, you cast Emma Stone as Spielberg's producing or directing. It's a sequel with Indiana Jones. But he's just staying at the university. He's retired. He's sending this young guy on the mission because he can't do it. He only talks to him on the phone and stuff like that. Chris Pratt travels across the world, meets Emma Stone's character, and it's a movie about the two of them. It's kind of a romancing the stone kind of movie, like with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, Robert Zemeckis. It's less, you know, it kind of works in that way, like they're on an adventure together and they grow to like each other as they're on this action adventure comedy. Really like Romancing the Stone, by the way. Great knockoff. And maybe even Robert Zemeckis comes in to direct the movie. I would love to see Robert Zemeckis do it. That'd be really fun. I really liked that Flight movie he made with Denzel. So maybe Zemeckis directs, Spielberg produces. There's an idea. And it's a new Indiana Jones story with Chris Pratt and Emma Stone. And they go on an adventure together, like Romancing the Stone. And yeah, I think that could do really well. Romancing the Emma Stone, if you will. Chris Pratt kind of makes all of his movies seem comical. I think that helps the Jurassic Park movies making money. I think people laugh at those really bad jokes. Oh, I would love Brad Bird. I think that the humor is a big factor of why these movies are making money. Nostalgia. I think people like funny Chris Pratt. They're like, oh, it's Star-Lord, and the kids like him because he's goofy. I think that's probably a contribution to the, and also the first Jurassic Park was funny. Ian Malcolm was a very funny character. It was also very scary. I think it's one of the scariest films ever made. I think the horror scenes, the thriller scenes are scary as shit, and it's impressive because it's PG-13. It shows you can make a scary PG-13 movie, but there's a lot of comedy in the first Jurassic Park. It's just a lot of these jokes aren't well written. Chris Pratt's a good comedic actor. He's great on Parks and Rec. He's one of like the top actors on that show with Nick Offerman, and I think if the jokes were funny in the Jurassic Park movies, he could be really good. It's just they're not that funny. I wouldn't mind a funny action-packed Jurassic Park sequel that if it was well done. These are just really crappy. I wouldn't mind a fun action adventure Jurassic Park movie personally. I just don't think they've done a good job with the screenplays. Green needs to eat a huge cheeseburger though. That's one big pile of shit. Yeah, there's a lot of that's funny. There's funny good stuff in Jurassic. You know, when Jeff Goldblum's in the car and now I'm talking to myself. When he's telling her about chaos and then she gets out of the car and he's like, now I'm talking to myself. That's funny stuff. It has to be humor like that. It needs to be in the moment and organic and character-based and dialogue-based and not forced jokes. And I think Chris Pratt would be really good at that. In fact, I wish Jeff Goldblum had been in this movie more and played off Chris Pratt. I would much prefer Jeff Goldblum was in this movie as Ian Malcolm with Chris Pratt than Bryce Dallas Howard. I think this would be a much more fun movie if it was Goldblum with him. I think that could have really... That's a lot of lava. Like, I think they could have just done so much with that. Because Goldblum has that thing where he can make anything work. The most retarded shit. He somehow finds a way to make it work. So 711 million worldwide. Been out a few weeks. $1 billion is guaranteed. How much more than that has yet to be seen, but I would say 1.1 is definitely a lock. So yeah, huge opening weekend. Fallen franchise when it comes to quality, not financially. The Jurassic Park franchise is here to stay. And Steven Spielberg once again cashes in. Even though Ready Player One did well worldwide, 581 million. But it didn't do that great domestically when you factor in its budget. He's going to be making a lot off this. He also has that deal with Universal where he makes like 3% of everything, every ticket sold, every food vendor thing sold. I mean, Spielberg makes so much money, but worldwide as a producer, Spielberg's made $18 billion. His films have made that much money as a producer. So, needless to say, Steven Spielberg's going to go buy himself like a 12th house this weekend. And unlike Johnny Depp, he won't be broke. Which I would recommend that recent Rolling Stone article about Johnny Depp. Let's see if Black Panther's made anything more worldwide. I think it's pretty much done. Yeah. Just scratching to 700 million. Hotel Artemis was a bomb. Speaking of Jeff Goldblum. Lobster Cop. 35,000. Okay. That's a movie. Summer 1993. This looks like a Romer film. I'd like to see this. I've heard good things. Excuse me. Trying to see if anything really to talk about. The Catcher was a spy. The Catcher of the Spy. Paul Rudd, Paul Giamatti, Mark Strong. What the fuck? Guy Pearce. What's this? Jeff Daniels? Holy crap. What is this movie? Oh, I love when Paul Rudd tries to be serious. It's adorable. It's adorable. I can act. Although there's Cusack-like qualities to him. He's great in Clueless and a lot of other movies. Big fan of Paul Rudd, but he's not a great dramatic actor. I can only imagine the great Dennis Quaid, who I love. $83 million. On a $7 million budget. Man, Dennis Quaid's on a win streak right now. That movie, the dog movie, Purpose of Dogs or something like that. The movie made $200 million on like a $20 million budget. A Dog's Purpose. So Dennis Quaid's been in some, like, he's like that guy who gets that family-friendly Christian audience. Your mom likes his movies. I mean, Dennis Quaid's really, like, later in his life has made a very solid career in these films. And they've been, I mean, I love Dennis Quaid, going back to The Rookie even, but even before that, he's great in the Parent Trap remake. He's great in Breaking Away, a wonderful film from the 70s. I mean, Dennis Quaid's great. I love Dennis Quaid. I know some people are like he's Harrison Ford 2.0, but Inner Space. But I'm really happy for him. Like, in his, like, he's older now. He's in his 60s, and he seems like just like the nicest dude on the planet, and he's been in all these really successful films that I think make more money because he's in them. So good for Dennis Quaid. That's all I gotta say. Oh, I would love Dennis Quaid in Jurassic Park, man. Yeah. Love it. He would have been good as Alan, actually, even though, you know, I think Sam Neill, I think he did a great job, but he'd have been good in that role. Dennis Quaid would have been good in Jurassic Park. Certainly probably would have played off better than Jaws 3. I refuse to watch a Blade Runner sequel, but regardless, you can't say it worked brilliant because nobody went to see it. Well, yeah. Well, I think that had a lot to do with nobody really saw the first Blade Runner. I mean, they seem to ignore it was a cult film. Like even with the DVD sales and VHS sales and merchandise, Blade Runner's like never been that popular. I still know so many people have never seen Blade Runner. It was a bomb on initial release. It made profit later, but Blade Runner was never like Star Wars. I don't know why they thought they could make a $150 million Blade Runner film. I guess their thinking was Arrival made money, and Ryan Gosling was coming off La La Land, and Harrison Ford was a big star, so maybe they thought just people will go see that. But it was so tied to the first movie. You really had to see the first Blade Runner to get Blade Runner 2049. I mean, it was a very acclaimed movie, and it won a couple Oscars, but yeah, it was financially, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I wish Hollywood would take more risks like that and make more movies like that, but from a financial standpoint, I don't know why you would make a Blade Runner sequel for that, and not have Ridley Scott directing it, even though I'm glad Ridley Scott didn't do it, but... And why would you spend $150 million? I mean, I would have given Denis Villeneuve at most $90 million. If it was me, I would have said, you have to make this on $90 million. I'm not giving you $150. On $90 million, even with how well the movie, with what the movie did, it wouldn't have been that bad of a bomb. They would have they might have been able to break even eventually on home media and on, television and all that. But where it's at now, the film lost them like $85 million and they're never going to break even. If it was like a $90 million movie, $85 million, it might have been able to break even at some point down the road. So you can kind of excuse it a little bit more. But why what did they think that film was going to make $500 million? I mean, maybe they thought the international box office would be bigger. I don't know. I was confused by the whole Blade Runner 2049 getting made. I mean, I don't know. They had Ridley Scott's name on it. They're like from the director of Arrival and Prisoners. They had, Gosling was big at the time. I just don't think there's a lot of Blade Runner people out there. And it's a slow 3-hour movie. I really like the movie, but... Oh, I would love Robert Downey Jr. in Jurassic Park. Yeah, that'd be cool. I just want Robert Downey Jr. in stuff that's not Marvel. I miss Robert Downey Jr. being in movies. Like, I know he left Gravity, and he left Oz the Great and the Powerful and a lot of other films. But yeah, I just miss Robert Downey Jr. being in other films. I miss him being in, like, romantic films and comedies. And he's a smart guy. Being with Marvel's genius. He's made a lot of money. And I know Due Date sucked. And The Judge. But yeah, I would just like Robert Downey Jr. to be in... I mean, remember when he was in Zodiac? Remember when he was in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and he was so good? Wouldn't you like to see Robert Downey Jr. work with David Fincher again? Wouldn't you like to see him work with, be in a Tarantino movie or something? I just like to see him. Oh, he also, Inherent Vice, he left that movie too. He's left a lot of really interesting projects. He was going to be in Inherent Vice, he was going to be in Gravity, and he was going to be in Oz. And he would have been good in all three of those, I think. I think he would have been better than Clooney in Gravity, and I think he would have been better in Inherent, even though Joaquin Phoenix is one of the better parts of that terrible movie. But I just kind of miss Downey Jr., the actor. It's always Tony Stark. Yeah, Rob Baker didn't like it. I think he gave a much better review than a lot of people do. Like, I think Razor Fist didn't do the best job articulating his points, but Rob Baker did a really good job reviewing the movie. I agree with a lot of his points. I just enjoyment's not, I still enjoyed it. Downey Jr. is contractually obligated to only star in Marvel. It does feel that way. Oh, Jake Gyllenhaal. I wish Jake Gyllenhaal was a movie star. He's just not. He just hasn't become a big star. I thought, I think Nightcrawler should have made $100 million. I wish that, Prisoners had been a bigger hit. I wish that even that film he was in, the film Stronger. I mean, I wish Jake Gyllenhaal was a big star. He's really not. If you look at Jake Gyllenhaal's career, he's not that big. Gosling at least had La La Land. And the Notebook stuff. Like, Jake really only has, like, Brokeback Mountain did well. He's really not been in any hit movie. I wish Jake Gyllenhaal was just this huge movie star. Like, Nocturnal Animals didn't do well. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's arguably the best actor of his generation. And he just hasn't turned into a big A-list star. Like, people know who he is, but his movies don't make any money. And he stars in really good movies. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal chooses good roles and is good in them. I don't know what he needs to do. Does he need to be like in a television show or something? Like, can we get Jake Gyllenhaal? And like, why? The man needs an Oscar too. How the fuck did he not get nominated for Nightcrawler? Baffling. Not only did he deserve the win, but he wasn't even nominated. Makes no sense. He's terrific. I mean, I have nothing but praises for Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's terrific. Oh, he's great in Donnie Darko. He's been great though ever since. He's so good. I mean, he's great in Prisoners. He can do different roles. He's a great physical actor. His facial. He's great in Source Code. I guess Source Code made money. He's great in Source Code. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, the last few films he's been in, the last several, he's been amazing in all of them. And I'm so upset he hasn't become more, been recognized by the Academy or been seen in these films didn't make more money. I really wish Jake Gyllenhaal, I mean, I guess he's going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. I disliked everything about Inherent Vice, quite frankly. I disliked the pacing. I dislike trying to adapt Thomas Pynchon, which I think is impossible, especially that book. I think Crying About 49 could have done better. I think it's meandering, mumbling. I think it's confused. I think it's trying to... He says his influence were like David Zucker films. I think it's not funny at all. I think that the dialogue's mumbling. I think it's 2.5 hours of nonsense. It's a very slow, boring film. With, you know, Josh Brolin being one of the shining factors of it, and some decent cinematography, and some moments here and there. But yeah, it's trying so hard to capture the book vibe of like a Tom and Pynchon novel, and I think it just shows you can't adapt certain books like that. I mean, I pretty much dislike everything about it. I dislike the screenplay. I don't think it's well written, even though it was nominated for an Oscar. The acting, I think, is all mediocre, overdone. Scenes drag on for sometimes 10 minutes, it feels like, if longer. I like the scene with Owen Wilson with the pizza and the ass and all that. I like that scene a little bit. I think it needs a lot of editing. I think the sound mixing's bad. I think sometimes you can't hear what people are saying. I think it's a mess. I mean, I know some people like it and say it's really funny and well done. I don't get it at all. I think it's a mess. I think it's amateurish. I think it's just a bad movie all around. I think tonally it's bad. People are like, man, I laughed. This is the funniest movie I've seen in a while. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you like the language of it and stuff from the book, but as far as filmmaking execution, I don't find any of it. I find it to be incredibly dry. And I know most people hate the movie. It's a pretty hated movie. Even though a lot of critics gave it a pass, and it got a couple Oscar noms, and I know a lot of people say it's the funniest movie I've seen in years. It's brilliant. It's amazing. The trailer was great. It looked like a Coen Brothers movie. It looked amazing. But I don't get it at all. I've watched that film a couple times, and I hate it. Like, I hate Inherent Vice. Like, I think it's a really bad movie. And I think if Paul Thomas Anderson hadn't made it and it'd be the same movie, people wouldn't give it a pass. I think a lot of people that praise it wouldn't go, oh, this is brilliant. I think it's just because it's PTA. And a lot of people act like his shit don't stink. I think if someone else would have made that, people would have just called a spade a spade. But because it's PTA, they have to say, oh, it's brilliant because this guy's a genius. And, That's also not true. If you smoke some pot and watch Inherent Vice, you'll love it. I can safely say that is not true. You can still be bored to absolute tears being high watching that movie. So I disagree. I think it's actually a terrible stoner movie. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it is not. It is not at all. It is it's bad in all ways, and just because you're high and all that, if you have to be high to enjoy a movie, you can be high and enjoy a lot of movies. You can be high and enjoy a lot of bad movies. You know, a lot of films that I don't think are very good. It's like, hey, if you're fucked up, it's a fun movie. Okay, but I mean, I like the books. I like Gravity's Rainbow. I like Crying About 49, but yeah, I don't think Inherent Vice is one of his better books. But holy crap, that, like, to me is, and it bombed. It's another PTA bomb. I know this guy keeps getting movies made. That bombed, The Master bombed, Phantom Thread just bombed. Yet he keeps getting movies made. I don't know whose dick he's sucking. How he keeps getting these movies made that lose money. It's weird. I don't understand Paul Thomas Anderson getting these budgets, but Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can enjoy a lot of movies if you're fucked up. Like, I don't know. I don't think that makes Inherent Vice good. I just saw Incredibles 2. It feels like Brad Bird agreed to do this after Tomorrowland bombed, and there's a great movie in there. I agree. It does feel like he had to do this after his live action career kind of petered out. I agree. You need some hella strong drugs. I mean, if you like Inherent Vice, that's cool. I'm not telling you you're wrong. Like, if you like that movie, that's fine. I don't like it. I've tried. But having said that, I also don't love Phantom Thread or The Master, even though there's good scenes in those movies. But I think Inherent Vice is easily Paul Thomas Anderson's worst movie. By far. And I'm a big fan of Hard Eight, or Sydney, a big fan of Boogie Nights, and a big fan of Magnolia and There'll Be Blood. And I like Punch Drunk Love well enough. But his last several films, I think, are all very overrated, both critically and by the art house community, and I think there's a reason they're not doing well. Not that financial success deals with quality. I don't think they're very good. I think he's become so esoteric. I think he's become so distant from telling a story anymore and trying to new things. I respect him. I respect Paul Thomas Anderson. I like him in interviews. I like what he's trying to do as a filmmaker. I like that he's trying to do new things. But I miss cocaine era PTA, quite frankly. I miss stuff like Boogie Nights and Magnolia when he told stories and had these ensemble films. I miss his energy. I miss his... I think There'll Be Blood was so praised and did so well, and he got so close to winning Best Picture, he let it get to his head, and he keeps trying to recreate the There'll Be Blood success. And a lot of these films feel like he's trying to do that again. I think Phantom Thread's better than some of his other films recently, but There'll Be Blood's like 2 hours and 15 minutes of a great film, and it's got about 20-something minutes that's a little too indulgent and long, but it's a hilarious movie. It's funny. Daniel Day-Lewis is great. It's awesome. I love the movie. Like, it's like a 9.5 out of 10 for me. I saw There'll Be Blood 5 times. I saw it many times in theater. I love it. But I think if he probably cut a half hour, it'd be like a masterpiece. But I still think it's one of the best films of the last decade. But I think that film did so well, and he kind of changed his style, and it all the pieces came together with that one. But people forget there was a lot more dialogue in that movie. There was a lot more humor. There was a lot more of a story. There was a lot more. It's just like he's gotten more and more distant and cold as a filmmaker. And I miss the humanity in Paul Thomas Anderson movies. I don't feel it in his movies anymore. I feel like his films are very cold. And I miss stuff like Boogie Nights. I could watch Boogie Nights right now and have a great time. Oh, I also apologize for not doing Saturday Night Fever for the last 2 weeks. Last week I couldn't do it because I had to do the Incredibles 2 review, and this weekend I just couldn't do it because I came home and I was so tired. Because I've been setting stuff up to move, and I'm just so tired. I will get back to Saturday Night Fever. I'm not done with it. I think Punch Drunk Love's a very interesting movie. I don't think it's great. I did plan on doing a review of Phantom Thread with Blood Money on Real Discussions. We just never did that podcast. We were going to do that film, Shape of Water, and then Good Time, which are movies I never did a review for. But I think Boogie Nights is an amazing movie, and I think Magnolia is a great movie too. So I want to say that I think he made some great films. And I was a huge fan of him as a teenager, but I am not. That sucks. Downey and Fincher didn't Downey not like that they had to do so many takes? He left like jars of piss for Fincher. He didn't like doing multiple takes. That really pissed him off. I remember reading about that. Yeah, I feel that way too. I was disappointed in The Master. I've been disappointed with Paul Thomas Anderson. He hasn't been doing it for me. I find the second half of his career to be very disappointing. I think Fincher's been much better in the later half of his career, and I'm upset that PTA's films aren't better. I hate saying that because I really think PTA's a talented guy. I really do. And I like his Robert Altman and Hal Ashby influence. I like a lot of the stuff that influenced him. I like, Boogie Nights has a lot of Scorsese in it, but I don't know what happened to him. No, Tarantino's There'll Be Blood thing's really good. I agree. I like their friendship. I like them talking to each other. I think they're more interesting now for me, guys, to hear talk about movies and review them and interviews about them and be film historians that I actually think are exciting me as filmmakers. I prefer hearing Quentin Tarantino talk about movies than watching his films. I prefer hearing PTA talk about movies than seeing his films. which is weird. Like, I prefer now if they just had a podcast together and talked about movies for, like, years. Then I prefer... then I've enjoyed their movies. I think Tarantino's amazing in interviews and all that, and I think PTA's great at them, too. I love listening to them in interviews, and they're so smart. They clearly know movies. They're great critics. They're very good analysis. I mean, I really do. I love their observations. I would love to hang out with both of them. I think they're very cool guys. But yeah, as filmmakers, even though I really like Hateful Eight, I've grown very distant towards both of them. Our Robert Downey Jr.'s Calculon from Futurama. I do not need second takes. Well, Downey Jr.'s he doesn't really like going off the script. He always does an earpiece in his ear, and he gets the dialogue fed to him. Yeah, no, Tarantino has the gift of gab. It's like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, which he was never as good as them, but he's not really a good filmmaker anymore. But he's a great talker. He's a funny, interesting, good. He's on Joe Rogan's podcast. He was great. I mean, he's a really funny dude and entertaining. Some people have the gift of gab. Penn Jillette, great. That guy can make anything sound entertaining. Some people have the gift of gab, and these guys do. I love hearing them talk. Bret Easton Ellis, Adam Carolla. Some dudes are just fun when they talk. But as artists, I'm kind of not as in love with them as I used to be. Which is fine. That's fine. That's not really a negative. That still makes them have value in my life and entertainment and all that. They still provide something for me. So it's not necessarily a complaint. I still really like Tarantino. So Paul, what is your favorite fucking movie? Come on, man. Your favorite fucking movie, man. Yeah, no, I'm sure Tarantino, we would get along like nothing. I think it would be amazing. I really liked Hateful Eight too. I think Hateful Eight's his best movie since Jackie Brown. I really do. I really like Hateful Eight. I talked about that a few weeks ago, but I really do like it. So maybe, yeah, I don't love Django either. Maybe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood will be really good. He says it's like Pulp Fiction. So maybe. I mean, I love Pulp Fiction. I love Reservoir Dogs. I love Jackie Brown. I'm not a Tarantino hater, but I think he lacks. I mean, it's felt like he was getting so mature. He said when he made Jackie Brown, he said, "This is the film I want a 40-year-old to feel like a 40-year-old made it, but I'm like in my late 20s or early 30s." And then he didn't follow that up. I found The Hateful Eight nothing but disgusting. That's interesting. Disgusting. It disgusted me. A lot of actors I'd like to see work with David Fincher, though. I'd like to see Jake Gyllenhaal work with him again. Because Zodiac, I mean, he's good in that, but I think now, holy shit, the two of them could really make... I wish David Fincher had directed The Disaster Artist, I gotta say. I think about that a lot, and I've been closer to the book. That could have been a film that got that could have been a Best Picture type movie if David Fincher had done it, and it was all the book and the stuff Greg wrote, all the stuff they cut. You could keep a lot of the cast, keep James Franco, but man, The Disaster Artist could have been an amazing movie. It could have been so much like Boogie Nights. Like, so much of it could have been an epic. It could have been a 2.5-hour epic like Boogie Nights. It'd been amazing. It's one of the most disappointing films for me, even though I still think it's a fun, entertaining movie. That book is brilliant. The audiobook's even better. And they cut 55% of it, and James Franco's just not a very good director, and it just sucks because that really could have been that easily could have been my favorite movie last year, The Disaster Artist. Easily. I mean, I think that film could have been in a film that got David Fincher, it should have been David Fincher or someone like that. Am I the only one who thinks The Meg is just Jaws, but with a bigger shark? Reservoir Dogs and Hateful Eight are probably my favorite films of his because I don't like Bruce Willis. Well, those films also all take place in one place. You gotta think about that. That's when he's kind of doing like the play thing. Reservoir Dogs and Hateful Eight are all like, people talking, which is his strength, very intense conversation. So those films are the most intimate ones because it's just people sitting in one area for the majority of the film having intense conversations, which is Tarantino at his best. Is when it's just, that's why the scenes in Inglourious Bastard, the opening scene and the scene at the bar are the best scenes, because they're just really intense conversations that go on for like 20-30 minutes. One thing I love about Reservoir Dogs, though, that's so brilliant about that film people don't talk about, that film perfectly captures that experience everyone has, where after you have like a fucked up night, like when you have like a party where you thought the cops are going to come or something happened with somebody crazy, and you all get together the next day and talk about what happened, and you're trying to rationalize and figure it out. And we've all had this. I've had this many times in my life where I went to like some crazy happened. We ended up somewhere crazy, and you get with the friends the next day and you're all talking like, okay, man, let's go through everything that happened. Okay, so this happened, and then you're all still elated from the situation you were in, and you're all trying to figure it out. I've always kind of wanted to make a movie about that, like guys trying to piece together a party they were all at and what happened. But you all start talking about like something happened. You're like, okay, so this happened, and you're all adding and you're trying to bond over it. That's what Reservoir Dogs captures so great. That's why it's so intimate and relatable. Is that they all go to the warehouse after the jewelry store heist goes bad. And they're all trying to talk. Those early scenes with Mr. Pink and Mr. White, with Harvey Keitel and Steve, where they're talking like, okay, man, let's go through everything that happened, you know, and they're breaking down every single thing, and they're trying to feel calm with each other because they're so nervous and they can't really. It's just great, and they're like, and they kind of come down like, hey, man, smoke a cigarette, figure it out. Okay, we'll talk. And they go off to the side. Let's go talk about it in here while he's bleeding, and they're trying to figure it out. That's so relatable. I've had that so many times in my life with a group of friends. We're like, man, we almost got busted last night. The cops showed up to that party. I know. Okay, let's break down. What did Brittany do? Okay, why did this happen? Oh, that guy last night. I thought he was going to beat me up. And they're all trying to figure it out together in this group. A little bit like a murder mystery, but more real than that. Murder mystery almost has this artifice to it that is kind of played in stuff that's based in genre and certain things. This is more like actually. There's kind of a real, like, realistic thing to Reservoir Dogs. It feels very real, even though it's hyper stylized. It feels like guys really having conversations about something that went down. It feels like this is probably what would happen, even though everyone talks in a very, idiosyncratic way because it's Tarantino dialogue. But it's so great them talking and trying to figure out everything and not having all the information, so we as the audience don't have all the information, and we're learning it along with them. It's very clever. And that's when Tarantino's at his best, honestly, is when he doesn't have the story all being... Because I don't know if he's exactly a great storyteller, but he's great at that kind of stuff, presentation of people talking to each other, figuring things out. That's when he's really... excels as a filmmaker. That's really when I think he's like a great filmmaker, and I love that. That's why I think he'd be good at doing plays. I think he'd be great at doing plays. And I'd like to see him do theater work in the future. I think when the stuff I like less of him is the Kill Bill stuff, is the stuff in Django that's like a Western, is the like I like less. I like the cinematic action scenes, indulgences, when he tries to do all the moving pieces. I actually prefer when his stuff's smaller. I think that's when he's really good. Where PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, I would like if his films had energy and more going on. That's what I like so much about Magnolia and Boogie Nights. One where they're all trapped in a big house for the night. Agatha Christie. I mean, he basically made an Agatha Christie film. That's basically what Hateful Eight was. I mean, it's not really that far off, if we're being fair. Why didn't you like my fucking movie, man? You think you can make a better fucking movie than me? You don't like all that shit in Django, man? What's wrong with you, man? Come on, man. That's the fucking thing, man. I used to talk so fast and rant like Tarantino. Sometimes I talk to Bloodman, he's just like, stop it. Like, I just start talking to people. I'm like, that's fucking aces, man. It's a good fucking movie, dude. I really like this fucking thing. Oh, Kill Bill 2 sucks. It's so boring. Even the dialogue's mediocre. Oh my god. No, Kill Bill 1 has some fun stuff, but Kill Bill 2, holy shit. I don't know how anyone likes that boring piece of shit. It's so pretentious and up its own ass. Oh my god. From the opening scene, Kill Bill 2 is like, oh, no. Please, kill me. Don't kill Bill. Kill me. Help me, help you. Help me, help you. Okay, Uma, here's the fucking thing, alright?
All right, listen. You're gonna go in, and she's gonna be there, and it's your daughter, and she's gonna go, bang, bang, mommy. It's fucking great, because you're gonna be all freaked out, Uma, and you're not gonna expect it to happen, all right? People are gonna love it. But then, Bill shows up, and you can't kill him. And he does this whole thing about Superman, because it's comic books, and people are gonna get it, because it's awesome. All right? But then, you do go out, and here's what you do, okay? You kill Bill with the technique that nobody else learned, all right? So we set up 2.5 hours of movie, and people are gonna be like, oh my god, she's gonna kill Bill, and then you do it in the most subtle way, and he walks off and he dies. It's awesome. It's the quiet samurai death. And then you get your daughter, and then you get what you want. You get to be the hero at the very end, but you have to earn it, Uma. You have to earn it. Fuck yeah. Come on, let's do this. If it's a fast-talking person, if it's Ben Shapiro or Quentin Tarantino, I could do the impression. If it's somebody who talks really slow, I can't do it. They have to talk fast. I already kind of sound like Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if it's an impression or I'm just baby Tarantino. I mean, it really isn't. If I start ranting, I can get to that. That's a fucking thing, man. Especially young Tarantino. That's really how he talked. If you go back to when he was young. The thing about Brian fucking De Palma, man, that people don't fucking get, all right? He did everything that Hitchcock did, you know? But he had more satire. He was funnier. He's fucking funny, man, all right? And he was my favorite out of the film brats, okay? He was my favorite. Right? Everyone likes Scorsese, everyone likes Coppola, and they're fucking brilliant, okay? They're good. But man, De Palma, man. De Palma's where it's at, man. Seriously. You know, if you could do something like Dress to Kill, man. If you could do Blowout, man. You know me, I'm about performances, man. I fucking love John Travolta in Blowout. So I cast him in Pulp Fiction. It's great. It's fucking great. You know, people don't get that, man. You know, people are always like, oh, John Travolta's an actor, he's not good. They don't understand. Right? And Harvey Keitel. Harvey fucking Keitel, man. I mean, that's how the guy talked. Come on, man. I love Norm Macdonald's impression of him. Man. Hey, dude. I can't do a Christopher Walken impression. I can't. I've tried. He can be very boring at times, so the way he talks makes it... Totally, Tarantino can make anything funny. You're gonna drive the fucking car. Uma. It's not gonna kill you, Uma. Alright? You're gonna drive it at 40, and if you don't do it right, I'm gonna make you do it again. Alright? That's what's gonna happen. I love that he can get calm and quiet and, like, contemplative. He can get, like, so, this is what happens in the movie. And then he gets really excited, like, and it's too fucking awesome to imagine. Like, and then he gets really hyper. And then he gets quiet Tarantino again, you know. These are my characters, right? These are my fucking characters. And I know what they're gonna say. You don't change the dialogue. I don't care who you are, man. You don't change my words. Because I know how these people think. I know their worldview. And the dialogue has to be right, man. It has to sound right. All right? You don't change David Mamet. You don't change Shakespeare, man. Are you saying you're as good as Shakespeare, Tarantino? I'm saying I'm fucking better, man. Fuck Hamlet. I made Pulp Fiction. Oh, okay. Okay, Quentin. That's the shit, man. Hey, do you think Roger Avery had anything to do? No! Fuck Roger Avery. I don't care what people say. I don't care if they think that he's the reason my first few films had more restraint and were better because I had someone to bounce off of. That's ridiculous. My best film is Inglourious Bastards. Because at the end of the movie, alright? I have Aldo Ray say, who I was going to play, by the way, that this might just be my masterpiece. I don't know if you picked up on it. That was me saying it to the audience. I'm a fucking genius, man. I'm a fucking genius. I need to do a short film where Quentin Tarantino shows up. Oh my god, it's Quentin Tarantino! Hey, man! Okay, folks. Alright, gang. Alright, we're here to talk about Quentin Tarantino's movies. Alright, Pulp Fiction's a really, really overrated movie, folks. Okay, gang. And the idea that I don't like the movie just because I have a problem with R-rated films and violence on it's pretty ridiculous. I like Unforgiven, folks. Okay? That's an R-rated movie, gang. Okay, gang? My wife's a doctor. I think I can deal with a little bit of violence and blood. All right? All right, she tells me about stuff. She shows me photos. I've dealt with it before. I go to the hospital to visit her. I take kosher food. And she's doing a surgery. I see some blood and stuff, and I still eat my food, folks. Okay, gang? Don't worry about that. We eat Blue Apron together, and we watch horror movies. Okay, have you ever seen Shoah? Okay, it's pretty harsh stuff. It's all language. Okay, there's the Schindler's List violence. I like that movie. It's got nothing to do with me being Jewish. And the idea that you think that it's because I'm Jewish is pretty damn ridiculous. And you shouldn't make assumptions like that, okay? Okay, I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate your communist mindset, okay? And Pulp Fiction's a really, really overrated movie. Okay, it's really, really bad. Tarantino doesn't make good movies. It's just porn. He just makes snuff. Okay? And don't say I'm just a curmudgeon little Jewish guy. Okay? Meanwhile, before we talk about this, let's go to a sponsor. Buy these watches, folks. Come on, folks. You know you want these watches for $50. They're so good. Heard what you said about my fucking movie, Shapiro. Fuck you. Okay? That's really anti-Semitic of you, Quentin. I don't appreciate it. Every time anyone criticizes me, it's anti-Semitism. Okay? Get out of here. I hate your politics. You support Black Lives Matter and you're a socialist pig. I don't appreciate it. Your films are smut. They're porn. Gay people don't deserve to praise you. You don't deserve those Academy Awards. You're not good, Tarantino. Fuck you, Shapiro. I don't care. Okay? My facts don't care about your feelings, Quentin. It's not a fact that my movies are bad or porn because you say it, man. Yeah, it is. Because I'm Ben Shapiro, and I know everything. You don't know a goddamn thing? Oh, crap. Oh, got you, man! Ben Shapiro takes his mask off. He's a demon. I've been lying the whole time. I'm not the most righteous person ever. I am Satan. I am the Antichrist. I've been waiting for that to happen. My friend has a theory. Ben Shapiro's the Antichrist. I think there's a good argument to be made that if the Antichrist was going to show up, it would be Ben Shapiro. He has all of the makings of the Antichrist. It would be the guy that you don't suspect that's going to unite us. He'll run for president in a few years and he'll unite the country. He'll unite everyone and then he'll bring about the apocalypse. I promise you. It's Ben Shapiro, people. He's the freaking Antichrist. Be scared of that man. Oh yeah, no, it's just, it's basically become it's watching a Ben Shapiro, listening to a podcast is like watching the Home Shopping Network. I only liked Pulp Fiction. The violence there was shocking, though you didn't see very much of it. In The Hateful Eight, you get close-ups of head being blown away. As if Tarantino was watching ISIS videos. I do think Tarantino used to have a lot more restraint. Like when he cut away from the ear getting cut off in Hateful Eight. The Jewish is a demon. I know, there's implications there. And then Pulp Fiction, you know, the violence is, yeah, it's not really that over the top. But yeah, now he does over the top gory violence and has heads explode stuff. I miss Tarantino not doing that stuff. He used to not be over the top. And people forget that about his early work. When he was younger, somehow he was more mature. Welcome to the Ben Shapiro home shopping experience, folks. Okay, gang? Alright, I'm going out with the Scooby-Doo gang. Alright, folks? Alright, gang? We're gonna go to this haunted house, folks. Alright, gang? Velma, you go here. Okay, you're the smart one. Besides me, because I'm the smartest person ever. I went to Harvard. Alright? You think my wife, who's a doctor, married me for my looks, even though I'm adorable? Okay? I mean, I'm not gonna be in the NBA, folks, but come on. Shaggy, Scoob, you guys smoke pot. You guys smell bad. I don't like pot. Go do your little pot thing over there, even though I think you should have the right to smoke pot. Okay, gang? I'm not saying that you can't. Just goes to show you it's the person you least suspect. Devil Flanders. Yeah, you gotta be careful. I think Ben Shapiro is a great, should be on the list of candidates for the Antichrist. That's all I'm saying. He's too perfect. There's something underneath. And I'm nervous. I'm very nervous. Do you remember in Private Parts, Paul Giamatti is pig vomit saying to Howard Stern, "You're the goddamn Antichrist." That's the funniest fucking thing. Does he look like a bitch? I don't know what the show's turned into. It's turned into the Shapiro and Tarantino. Welcome to Shapiro and Tarantino. Welcome to the show. He's a Jew. And he's an LA dude. He likes movies and he likes politics. Together, they're gonna make the best tricks. I'd watch that show. The Shapiro and... I watched that sitcom. They're at the beginning, they're like Laverne and Shirley. Shamil, Shamazel. We're gonna do it. Our way, yes, our way. Making our dreams come true. Tarantino and a Jew. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. It's the meetup of the Shapiro Appreciation Society. Freddy is gay. That fucking ascot. I would love that plot twist if Freddy was gay. That would make him a more interesting character, I'd argue. Instead of them always trying to make Velma a lesbian. We get over that? Oh, she wears glasses and all that. She's a lesbian. And she's nerdy. Cool. I can't believe this is like a 3-hour show. I was really thinking today was going to be like a 2-hour. But you guys gave me some super chats. I got like, what, $20 or something. So, Jurassic World. I was like, oh, let's do a shorter show today, like hour and a half, 2 hours. But whatever. I haven't done any videos this week except like, what, the Jurassic Park and then... The Star Wars video just did so well. I'm right at, and I'm about to make 9,000 subs, so... But whatever, why not do a long one? Why not go there? Getting hungry though. I had a sandwich earlier, but not really. Sucks. I save all the good stuff for Box Office Addict at the end. I should do this at the beginning. Too much foreplay. That's the problem. You really you gotta be patient if you want to get the good stuff. You want the really, really good stuff. All right, I guess we'll wrap it up. We're like what, 2 hours 50. Let's not let this go to 3 hours. Hopefully this gets a lot of views on the average afterwards. All right, guys. If you're a fan of Box Office Addict, you're probably a Box Office Addict yourself. And I'm not here to help you with your addictions. I'm here to encourage them. I want you to stick the needle in your arm, especially when it's got box office numbers in them. That's how I feel. I love you guys. I'll keep you guys updated. I'll be moving in a couple weeks, but I will still be here next week. I believe so, yes. And that will be Box Office Addict episode 50. 50 weeks. As always, thank you to the wonderful Bathory who's helped me get through this. I think she's been here since the beginning. All of you guys who've been on the board for a long time. There's how many of you are watching right now? 46. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to everyone who's going to continue to watch. I'm not going anywhere. And yeah, let's get to episode 50. I mean, let's just do it, guys. Let's all give each other hand jobs, right? That's what we need to do. You know, everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets a trophy. Bye. 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 That's the fucking thing.